Going to war, that would have to wait. Su Ping left that room. As for the chance of relocating the store, it would be a function for a later use. Su Ping was quite happy about the fact that the dummy trainer could finally handle advanced rank battle pets in bulk. He would be able to train pets faster in the future. He could assign the job to the dummy trainer as long as it wasn't the professional package. However, Su Ping wasn't intending on training any battle pets at the moment. The battle pet warriors would lose their minds if the battle pets were stuck in training when the beasts finally attacked. At the same time, far away to the west of the continent, the ocean suddenly began to tumble when the first morning light reached the edge of the continent. There was no wind that day. However, a hundreds of meters tall tide was formed, many ferocious figures were swimming inside. Those ocean beasts were moving along with the tide. Behind the tide was a dense swarm of beasts. All of them seemed quite cheerful. In the meantime, an island was moving toward the north of the continent. That mobile piece of land was filled to the brim. Upon a closer look, one would see that it was full of beasts. The island stopped by the edge of the continent. The beasts received their orders, they happily jumped off the island and dashed onto the mainland. The island suddenly turned around and went back as soon as the beasts were gone. If people had an aerial view of the situation, they would have seen dozens of thick limbs below water. It was a deserted plain. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. There came a beast with a paw that could easily flatten a tank. It was a lion with silver fur. The beast had 3 crooked horns on top of its head and its eyes were golden. Quite the regal beast. So, this is the last lair of the puny things. Finally, it is time that we claim a world as our own. A snake that was hundreds of meters long moved closer. Its scales were flickering in a faint, golden glow under the sun. The grains on the snake's scales formed many human faces that seemed to be screaming. The creature was also speaking in the human language. Boom! The ground trembled behind the 2 monsters and dust blotted the sky. Many more beasts were approaching. Beep, beep, beep. Do, do, do. Some construction pets were still working with humans to reinforce the 2 walls. The alarm sounded at the command center. The sound was harsh to the ears. Meanwhile, the alarms across all the base cities were also activated. All the people who had been busy inside the defense line stopped what they were doing. They gazed into the distance. The beasts were coming. The final battle would begin. The general public who were still inside their homes approached their windows with worry. There were no more shelters. If humans were unable to win the battle, the blue planet would become a planet dominated by beasts. People were still calm at the moment. They stayed in their homes, waiting for the final verdict. Some people crashed under the stress. They hurt other people and vandalized public facilities. Battle pet warriors asked those people to go outside the walls. Some of such people were executed on the spot. There were bloodstains left behind by mobs creating troubles on the streets of all the base cities, in both the uptown and the shantytown areas. Vehicles were moving fast on the streets. The general public was restricted by curfew, which left the streets empty. All the combat personnel started to hurry to their rally points as soon as the alarm sounded. The vehicles carried battle pet warriors to their destinations. Some of the battle pet warriors were still teenagers. They still had childlike appearances and they were afraid of the upcoming battle, the unknown. People watched with troubled minds as the vehicles drove by. They started to pray. They're coming. Sir, Sentinel Station 003 at the south detected a large number of beasts, identified as a level 5 strike. Sir, Sentinel Station 029 at the north detected a large number of beasts with 28 beast kings, identified as a level 8 beast strike. Sir, the intelligence staff were issuing reports in a hurry, moving all around the station. They relayed all the information to the command center. The ratings of the strike had been recently modified in the past, the scales were identified as small, middle, and large. But then the ratings were expanded to consider 9 levels. A level 9 beast strike would have 50 beast kings. As for a level 10 beast strike, that would mean the number of beast kings had gone over 100. It would be a clear indicator that the main force of wild beasts was underway. Gu Siping was at the command center with 2 legendary battle pet warriors accompanying him. The others present were the best military advisors who hailed from different base cities. Some legendary battle pet warriors were good at combat but not in strategy. The experts had to take care of the professional job. From which side will they arrive first? Gu Siping was overwhelmed by the information. He had barely finished hearing the first message when the next came. He had little time to process the information. There were other pieces of information as well. For example, some sentinel stations had been destroyed and the battle pet warriors had gone missing. In addition to that, some places micro-communication stations had been destroyed. They could no longer hear back from them. The beasts were there. They had arrived on the continent. Gu Siping wore a grave face. He was nervous. He didn't know when their ace card would come into play. He had no idea. However, once the alarm went off, he immediately sent legendary battle pet warriors he trusted back to the tower. It should be the south. A military advisor held his smart laptop in his hands. He was calculating the trajectory of the wild beasts and their speed. There are 7 groups of beasts coming from the south. The first group is at level 6. There are 9 beast kings. The ETA of the first group is 53 minutes. Sir, they may stop before they get here, to wait for the other groups so they can strike together. If so, the military advisors talked quickly and perspired out of nervousness. Gu Siping was worried about that as well. He could find ways to stop them if the beasts moved in separate groups. However, the situation would be hopeless if the beasts stayed together and launched a group strike. It was evident that the beasts were coming with a plan. That was to say, they would indeed not attack separately because they knew this wouldn't work. They would strike together. Gu Siping opened up the group chat of legendary battle pet warriors. I need people to stop the beasts in the south. Who wants to go? There are 9 beast kings in the first group coming from the south. One of the 9 is at the void state. I need them dealt with as soon as possible. All the legendary battle pet warriors saw the message. All of them had been on alert and checking their group chat since the alarm sounded. They had been waiting for orders. Let me. I will handle the south. Xiang Fengran said first. Almost at the same time, Yan Yuxiu's message also arrived. I will go. Where are they? Me. I will. Let me. The ones who answered the call were mostly those from the deep caves. Those from the tower also started typing, but Gu Siping made his choice before they could finish their messages. I will have Brother Xiang take care of this. Pick 3 at the ocean state to go with you. Xiang Fengran said, no problem. I will finish them all. He named 3 ocean state warriors, Mo from Yan Yuxiu's team and 2 others from Jing Shen's team. I'll be borrowing your team members. I'll bring them back to you later. Xiang Fengran added a smiling emoji. Yan Yuxiu replied, don't mention it. Take care. Don't worry. The 2 replied. Xiang Fengran named a place for them to meet and added, I'll try my best to bring them back with me. Captain Xiang, we don't need you to bring us back. We can do that ourselves. Right, Captain Xiang, are you belittling us? You'll be taking care of the Void State Beast King and we'll handle the rest. Jing Shen added, they know what they're doing. Black Lunatic, don't worry, do whatever you need to do. Xiang Fengran took a deep breath. He came out from the deep caves with some team members but they had been murdered by the thousand-eyed demon beast when he was in the Dragon Swamp continent. He had been able to make it out alive thanks to his team members' sacrifice. He was currently a person without a following, I see. I won't worry about them then. Xiang Fengran joked. Yan Yuxiu said, who needs you to worry about them? Our Mo is very good, don't underestimate him, you should take care of yourself. Do try to not slow them down. I don't want to see them get into trouble because you can't finish that void state thing. Xiang Fengran smiled. He didn't add a reply to that. Be careful, Yan Yuxiu said to Mo who was with him at the moment. Mo had lived for hundreds of years. He smiled from ear to ear at Yan Yuxiu. Don't worry, Cap. I will come back. Shut it. Don't jinx it. Once Xiang Fengran left with his team, Gu Siping went ahead and appointed the second team. Someone needed to go to the east side. I'll go. Shui Yunzhen was the first to reply. 8 beast kings, right? I'll be enough to take care of them if none of them is at the void state. Yan Yuxia cautioned her, be careful. Don't underestimate our enemies. I've noticed that the current devices aren't that accurate when it comes to void state creatures. Some of the beast kings may be hiding their strength and the devices won't pick that up. All right, don't sweat it. I'll escape if I run into a group of void state beasts. I'm also not afraid to fight if I do chance a lone void state beast, not with the battle pet that Mr. Su sold to me. Shui Yunzhen didn't seem to be worried. No one else said anything. They knew that every single one of them would enter the battleground soon. It was a critical battle for the blue planet. All of them would die if they were unable to defeat the beasts. So, there was no need to comfort anyone. No need. Yan Yuxiu and everyone else were prepared to sacrifice themselves. They were quite composed at the moment. Also, seeing them striving to be the first to go to the front line surprised those from the tower. These people are a bunch of lunatics. There weren't enough legendary battle pet warriors. Even so, they would still try to delay their involvement. Inside the store, Su Ping was following the chat group messages. He didn't say anything. He didn't go this time. Yan Yuxiu and the others could take care of those groups of beasts. Tang Ruyan and Solingyu were also at the store. They had seen the conversation. The two girls remained quiet. In times of war, there would always be a group of heroes that would boldly act without a care for personal sacrifice. Tang Ruyan looked at Solingyu. The former was tapping her arm with one finger. That was what she would do when nervous. Scared, Tang Ruyan asked, do you think we can make it this time? Solingyu looked at Tang Ruyan and then at Su Ping. Solingyu shook her head. Thinking about this is pointless at this moment. Tang Ruyan didn't expect that Solingyu would offer such a response. Tang Ruyan gazed at the latter and nodded, you're right. That being said, I still hope we can survive. Solingyu bit her lips. Tang Ruyan replied with silence. At the same time, back in the command center, Gu Siping was going through the information he was receiving. He was talking with the military advisors to find the best solution. Why would those beasts come from different regions of the continent? They could certainly crush us if they would have simply concentrated their forces at the east or the west. Some military advisors voiced their questions. An old advisor said with rage and coldness, those bastards are trying to catch the whole lot of us in one fell swoop. The other advisors turned pale at the thought. The beasts were coming from all sides just to surround them? They didn't want to spare any lives. They wanted to kill all humans. How cruel! The advisor felt the true heartlessness of the wild beasts. The beasts wanted humans to go extinct. Damn those bastards, one of the advisors said in anger. The old advisor pulled a long face and said in a low voice, let's not lose our minds to anger. A cool head is what we need. The other advisors came back to their senses. They looked at the old advisor to express their respect and appreciation. They focused their minds back on the information and the map. They will have to pay the price, Gu Siping said, they're coming from different sides. We will then have a chance to crush them one after the other. Oh hell, the second group of beasts coming from the east is going to merge with the first group. The appointed legendary warrior is going to be in danger, an advisor cautioned. Gu Siping looked at the map and opened the group conversation again. We need reinforcements in the east. Who wants to go? The second group of beasts is going to meet the first group. We need at least 2 void state warriors. Me. Yan Yuxia shouted first. Jing Shen followed closely, I will go. Okay. You too, do hurry, Gu Siping said. The advisor cried out in alarm, the first group in the north has stopped. They're merging with the second group. They're going to strike. They're waiting for more. Damn it. We're talking about a level 9 strike if we look at the north side. The advisors looked pale. Gu Siping's hands were sweating. A level 9 strike. That was the highest level they had. Gu Siping knew how many legendary battle pet warriors they had, all of them would have to head out in order to stop a level 9 strike. After all the captains from the deep caves were leaving. Only a few of those who had yet to be dispatched were at the void state. Sir, do we need blocking maneuvers in the north? It was Li Yuanfeng who added the message. I can go if you need more people, the bald legend said. He had once worked for Shui Yunzhen and was at the peak of the ocean state, inching close to the void state. After some hesitation, Gu Siping said, the north side has the largest group of beasts. The current assessment is that the strike is at level 9. I need all of you to go and finish the beasts before the third group merges with the first 2. Otherwise, we'll have to withdraw. Based on the current information, you have 40 minutes to finish the beasts. The warriors from the tower had yet to say a thing, they were all ghastly pale. A level 9 strike. That was to say, there were more than 50 beast kings. Some of them were bound to be at the void state. Maybe, there was one at the fate state. After all, the tower master had said before that there should be 20 or so fate state beast kings around the world. It was about time one of them came out to lead the strike. Suddenly, a man said, I will handle the north side. It was Su Ping. He then continued, I will go to the north side. The rest can go and support the other 3 sides. Be careful. Li Yuanfeng was the first to disagree, Brother Su, are you sure? What if you find fate state beasts? And considering the number of beasts, right? Don't worry about us. This is a level 9 strike and it must be finished within 40 minutes. It will take you some time to go there from where you are in Longjiang. Take me. I can help. And me. They all shouted to help. Su Ping took a deep breath and said, don't argue with me. I myself will be enough for the north side. I don't care if they have 1 group or 10 groups. I will end them all. His words were enough to enlighten the benighted. End them all? He would stay till all the beasts were killed. He would do this all by himself? Tang Ruyan and Solingya were frightened. Su Ping was losing his mind. How could he go and deal with those beasts by himself? That was almost 1/4 of all the wild beasts in the world. No one could do this. Ping, fearful, Solingya wanted to stop Su Ping, but he motioned her to stop talking. It's settled. Tell me where to go, Su Ping said. Gu Siping didn't expect Su Ping's heroic stance. The other advisors looked at each other, clearly stunned. Fine. I will let you handle it. Gu Siping said, escape if it's too difficult. Got it. Su Ping put the phone back in his pocket. Roar. Roar. The store was full of violent energy. The Inferno Dragon, the Dark Dragon Hound, and the Purple Python came out from their nursing pens. The little skeleton was quieter. However, while standing between the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound, the little skeleton was like their king. Come to battle, with me. Su Ping said. The Dark Dragon Hound barked. It wasn't a bark of excitement, but of courage and killing intent. Having stayed with Su Ping for such a long time, his battle pets knew full well how important the battle would be. Stay in the base city and do not leave the store for any reason, Su Ping said to Solingyu. Her eyes were wet. He walked to where she was and tenderly patted her head. Be a good girl. I will come back. Promise me that you will. Solingyu looked at him. She was bursting into tears. Sua Ping smiled at her. Of course. But don't run away before I come back. Don't make me go look for you again. Soling Yu remembered her plight while trapped in the corridor, her nails dug into her palms while she lowered her head. I will wait for you to come back. If you don't, I'll stay here all the time until you do. Sua Ping gazed at her and nodded. Take care of my sister, Sua Ping said to Tang Ruyan. Tang Ruyan's eyes were also misty. She bit her lips and remained silent. Stay inside the store if the beasts come to Longjiang. Joanna will protect you, Sua Ping said to the two. He then turned to Joanna, I will entrust you with taking care of them. Joanna nodded. He was not the weak young man he was before. If he had to fight against several Fate State Beast Kings, even if he could not defeat them, he could at least get out safely. Let's go. Sua Ping had the Inferno Dragon and the Purple Python return to the contract space first. He rode on the Dark Dragon Hound with the little skeleton and flew toward the north. Sua Ping was further and further away from the Longjiang base city. Brother Su, do come back. I'm waiting to have drinks with you. Mr. Su, I still owe you. You must come back safely. Li Yuanfeng, Qin Duhuang and the others sent their goodbye messages to Sua Ping in the group chat. If it weren't for the fact that people were needed everywhere, they would have rallied to the north along with Sua Ping. Sua Ping saw the messages. He smiled and hung up. He then gazed into the distance. He took a deep breath and told the Dark Dragon Hound to hurry. 10 minutes later, he arrived at the location that Gu Siping had sent to him. He could see the myriad beasts in the distance. The beasts were breathing heavily. There were some amongst them that stood out, having the size of mountains. Some beasts hid themselves in the crowd so as not to attract any attention. Just with that one glance, Sua Ping had seen dozens of beast kings, including several at the void state. He could not even. It was impossible to see the end of them. There had to be millions of beasts. Anyone else who saw that swarm would have been scared silly. Those beasts could cause a catastrophe. Sua Ping took a deep breath. He lowered his head and placed his hand on the little skeleton's head. The little skeleton raised its head, flames were burning violently in its eye sockets. One look and the little skeleton understood what Sua Ping intended. The next second, the skeleton turned into a red blur and merged into Sua Ping. Raging and boiling energy was increasing in Sua Ping. A wisp of energy managed to seep out. That single wisp had been enough to alert some of the beasts. Sua Ping immediately felt cold glares trained on him. He felt he was a rat facing a snake and there was nowhere he could run to. However, instead of becoming afraid, Sua Ping was burning with battle rage. White bones emerged over his skin. His face was covered in white bones as well. He looked terrifying. Come on out. Sua Ping said. Roar. The dragon roared. The Inferno Dragon came out, stepping on fire and lighting bolts. It was flapping its wings which had a reddish-purple hue. The dragon bellowed in response to Sua Ping's call. The dragon's roar swept across the field and affected the many beasts in the swarm. Many beasts below the king rank were so afraid that they dropped to the ground and trembled. Come with me, charge! Sua Ping shouted. Like a god of death, he hopped off from the Dark Dragon Hound and dived toward the beast army. He would deal with the beasts head-on. One man against a million beasts. Roar! Roar! Some beasts roared back, they were angered by Sua Ping's challenge. The next second, many sharp spines grew out from the ground, heading toward Sua Ping. Whoosh! 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 Sua Ping dashed around at the speed of lightning. Bang! 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 3 Ocean State Beast Kings were at the front. However, since Sua Ping understood spatial skills, the 3 were unable to stop him. Sua Ping ran past them and dove into the crowd. He didn't unleash any skills, he was just running. He was like a bolt of purple lighting. Bolts of lightning were flickering under his feet. He was using the thunder sprint, the strength of such a skill was at least at the void state. The beasts that Suaping ran into were instantly bursting to pieces. When seen from a distance, it was like a bolt of purple lightning shot into the crowd which blasted open a path. Roar! The beasts cried. Space caved in front of Suaping. That section of space formed a hand that came crashing down to finish Suaping. At the same time, space was trembling around Suaping, claws and tentacles reached from spatial cracks to attack him. Simultaneously, Suaping felt that the space around him was shaking violently. He could no longer teleport, but he was prepared. He punched at the limbs that were reaching him across space. The golden fist's virtual image was enlarged, landing on a sharp claw. Boom! Suaping pressed forward. Nothing could stop him. The sharp claw cracked under the punch, the crushed pieces fell over the beast swarm, one of the 9th rank beasts was pinned onto the ground by the remains. That strike cleared out a large area around Suaping. Many beasts were rendered into pieces of flesh and pools of blood. Suaping was unstoppable. Once he dealt that punch, Suaping turned around and drew his sword. He slashed and cut the limbs that were reaching for him through the spatial cracks. Bang, bang, bang. He cut off all the limbs. All of those were at the void state, and yet Suaping killed them as if it were child's play. Behind him, the Inferno Dragon had also dashed into the crowd of beasts. The Inferno Dragon had grown to nearly 100 meters long after consuming the purple blood dragon crystal. Spheres of lightning bolts and fire came out from under its wings. The dragon flapped its wings, which would produce those spheres of lightning and fire. They would bump into each other and merge. The merged energy ball carried a feeling of destruction. Boom! The ball of mixed energy fell onto the crowd behind Suaping. The earth instantly began to quake all over. It was a shock wave strong enough to topple buildings. A mushroom cloud rose, a massive pit appeared after the explosion. An ocean state beast king was unable to get away in time, only a piece of its tail was left in the pit. The swarm of beasts fell into panic. The Inferno Dragon's presence had affected the lower-ranked beasts' morale. Some beasts of the 7th and the 8th rank weren't even able to summon the courage needed for running. They were shaking on the spot. A hand-sized black eagle appeared while Suaping and the Inferno Dragon were fighting. Upon closer inspection, it would be evident that the eagle's feathers had been made of steel. The eagle's eyes were flickering, they were actually cameras. The flying eagle was a monitoring device controlled by the Sentinel Station. At the command center, Gu Siping and the military advisors stared at the screen in a daze. They froze on the spot due to pure astonishment. They were looking at the video feed coming from the north. Gu Siping could not believe it. He had never expected that Suaping would resort to such a wild method. He threw himself into the swarm of beasts. What a lunatic! He had to admit he was amazed by Suaping's strength. He, indeed, had the combat strength of the Fate State. He was crushing the Void State beasts. Is he at the legendary rank? No, he's a god. That's terrifying. The military advisors could barely keep their mouths shut. They would rarely see legendary battle pet warriors fight. The current fight they were watching had changed their views of battle pet warriors. They had previously seen how titled battle pet warriors would fight. But the current display they were witnessing was like from another world. In the north, Suaping was dashing around madly with sword in hand. He threw himself into the crowd because he wanted to make the beasts turn on each other. Once the Beast Kings retaliated, they would inevitably hurt the surrounding beasts. Bang! Bang! Suaping quickly got close to an ocean state Beast King. The beast was covered in a thick layer of black armor. However, the Beast King was halved with a single cut. Blood gushed out. His sword had once been the weapon of someone at the star rank. Even though the power had been lost, the sword itself was still sharp. Roar! The Inferno Dragon was following him closely. The dragon flew over the swarm of beasts and breathed fire at them. The dragon was using many legendary rank skills to blast at all its enemies. The swarm of beasts had been thrown into chaos. Average beasts were still, not daring to fight. Those that were further away were less affected by the Inferno Dragon's presence. However, they couldn't have struck the Inferno Dragon across such a distance. The Beast Kings were heading over in a group. A legend of the puny things. Damn it! Is he at the fate state like they call them? He's scary. I don't think I can survive his slashes. Over a dozen Beast Kings gathered together and discussed with grave looks in their eyes. The ocean state beasts were becoming more and more afraid as time passed. Go and alert Lord Bloodwings. We'll never be able to stop him. The Beast Kings were increasingly on edge as Suaping moved closer and closer. They spread out and prepared many long-range strikes. Boom! Suaping burst out from the inside of a beast that could not be seen clearly. He was covered in blood and remains. He saw that the Beast Kings were together, while 3 of them were at the void state. One of the 3 had a broken claw. It was the one responsible for the claw attack in the beginning of the fight. So, these Beast Kings can't share their energy, and neither can they build formations. They're in a state of disunion. Suaping was relieved to see that. He first charged toward the Ocean State Beast King. The beast, which resembled a mountain, with hair like seaweed, roared at Suaping and created an area covered with ice. The ice was radiating from the beast. The latter was using the ice to build icy walls and throw out ice spikes. Suaping tried to teleport over, however, there were simply too many ice spikes. There was no room for him to teleport. The little skeleton's white bones helped protect Suaping from the strikes. Rot in hell! The bolts of lightning helped Suaping speed up. He reached the Beast King instantly and slashed it open. Flames were burning on the Beast King's wound, which could not heal. Suaping added a punch to his series of attacks at the Beast King. In the meantime, strikes of the stone, darkness, flame, and wind families were on their way over. The area where Suaping was standing turned into a place of death. Break! Suaping swung his sword. He waved the strikes away and made a path for himself. The strikes were diverted, landing on the Ocean State Beast King he had been attacking. The Beast King was reduced to shreds. The surrounding beasts were flattened to the ground as well. Die! Die! Suaping turned around and tirelessly went to face another Beast King. In an instant, that Beast King fell, dead. The other Beast Kings continued attacking him. The Void State Beast Kings were working together to disturb the space around Suaping, all to prevent him from teleporting. Boom! Suaping had just cut open a Beast King when he was thrown to the ground by the strikes. He was feeling coldness and heat. He was hearing ghost-like wails and wolf-like howls. The latter were spiritual strikes from beasts of the demon family. Roar! Go away! Suaping shouted and dashed out from the pit. His hair was a mess, but he still had a sword in hand. He looked terrifying. Finish it! His eyes were turning red due to rage. He stared at the Beast Kings, then roared and charged at them. His wounds were healing while he did that. The little skeleton was absorbing blood from the surroundings, turning that into healing energy so that Suaping was able to heal. While merged with the little skeleton, Suaping had not only gained more energy but was also enjoying an endless supply. That was what made the little skeleton scary. Damn it! Is he even a member of the puny things? Why do I feel that this guy is a beast? We cannot stop it. Where is Lord Bloodwings? Many Beast Kings were terrified, given that Suaping had yet to show any signs of fatigue. Even a Fate State legend would have lost a considerable amount of energy in such a strike. However, it was different in Suaping's case. The Beast Kings were completely unable to hurt him. He would always stand up after falling. Some Beast Kings started to step further away from Suaping. They wanted to retreat. Bang! 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 Suaping pressed forward at full speed. Everywhere he went, he would either smash or cut the beasts into pieces. The beasts wanted to get away whenever he showed up. One man against them all and the beasts were panicking. The people in the command center were able to see this thanks to the metal eagle. Everyone was dumbstruck. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. 15 minutes had passed after Suaping's arrival. The huge swarm of beasts was rattled. Regardless of orders received from the Beast King leaders, some beasts started to run when facing the pressure of death. Following Suaping close, the Inferno Dragon was reaping the lives of the average beasts. The Dark Dragon Hound was following right next to the Inferno Dragon. Even though the former had mostly learned defensive skills, Suaping had forced it to learn a few of the offensive kind. No beast could hurt the Dark Dragon Hound, but the hound could hurt them. Suaping stopped. He realized that he had flattened half of the beast hordes. He looked back. Behind him, blood was flowing into a stream and corpses were piling like a mountain. In front of him, the beasts were running away. In 15 minutes, Suaping had killed more than 60 beast kings, and 9 of them had been at the void state. Phew! Phew! Suaping stabbed his sword in the snow. The snow was tainted red with blood. He panted as he placed his hands over the handle. The little skeleton was able to absorb blood and convert into energy to support him, but he was mentally tired. The Inferno Dragon had also stopped. It was sitting next to Suaping, seemingly still good for another round. The Dark Dragon Hound crouched by Suaping, wiggling its tail and gazing into the distance. He defeated them. Those in the command center stared at the fleeing wild beasts, dumbstruck. That was the first time that they had seen the wild beasts become scared enough to run for their lives. It was unbelievable. They saw the pile of corpses and the river of blood. Everyone started to feel that the young man alone was stronger than the two walls combined. Gu Siping looked away eventually. I think we don't have to worry about the north side. The west side is not good. I don't know why, but the beasts are moving slowly in that direction. Even so, the first group has arrived. We cannot allow more to come and we cannot allow those two groups to merge. You're right. An advisor nodded. Gu Siping turned off the screen. The advisor looked at the map in his hands and said, I think the beasts on the west are in disorder. Several beasts broke off the team and some were grounded on the spot. What is going on? Anyway, this is good for us. The total strength of the beasts has been weakened. It will make it easier for us to kill them all. That is correct. But Gu Siping still looked worried. With a frown, he said, the south side is not good. We don't have enough legendary battle pet warriors. Alert the titled battle pet warriors. Tell them to be ready to work with legendary battle pet warriors. Yes. In the north. Suaping remained on the spot, he didn't go after the beasts. He was worried that other groups of wild beasts could get around him and sneak over. Suaping called Gu Siping. Where's the first group of beast kings from the north? I was about to call you. They are right in front of you, you must have alerted them. The merging is happening, while the third and fourth groups are coming. We are detecting signs of fate state beast kings. Be careful, Gu Siping said quickly. Suaping hung up. He gazed into the distance and took a deep breath. Let's go. We will do this together. He said to the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound. The Inferno Dragon said in a low and muffled voice, I will stay with my master all the time. The Dark Dragon Hound expressed its thoughts with a bark. Suaping smiled at them, although the smile vanished quickly, a glint of coldness rose in his eyes. He hopped on the back of the Dark Dragon Hound and rode on. Soon after, he saw the place where the beasts were gathering. Without hesitation, he told the Dark Dragon Hound to fly over. He would fight the beasts head-on. He was there alone. No strategy would help him, he only had to fight. He could approach the beasts from the side, but anything he did would alert the entire group. He opted for saving time and confronting the beasts directly. Chapter 703 Earth-Shaking Move. I'd say he has come at a perfect time. Lord Bloodwings will eat him up. I'm going to eat that human's dragon. Some void state beast kings saw Suaping and his battle pet approaching, both angry and excited. Suaping didn't try to hide his momentum. After all, those at the void state were not to be trifled with, some of them that were more skilled in perception could even detect fate state beings in hiding. There was also the fact that Suaping was merely at the titled rank. There are more of them. Suaping looked down at the endless swarm of beasts from the sky. The rooted beasts had gathered with others. Suaping's killing intent was surging. If they had the guts to come, he would have the guts to kill them all. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, flames of fire and walls of ice came out from the throng of beasts. From the ground grew out many hills that tore the ground open. Toxic vines were wrapped around the hills, and then the vines were lashing at Suaping. The hills had some delicate and charming flowers. However, a dense array of toxic arrows were coming out of the flowers. Those strikes blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. The dark dragon hound barked and added many defense layers for Suaping and the Inferno dragon. The many legendary rank defense skills were so diversified that many beast kings that saw this were dumbstruck. The many types of energies bumped into each other, creating an explosion. Suaping and the Inferno dragon snarled and charged toward the beasts together. Roar! The Inferno dragon cried to the sky. Its mere presence had awed the beasts. No beast would ever forget that dragon as it soared in the sky, glaring as the sun. The average beasts were so frightened that they dropped to the ground and trembled. The ones among them with a less violent nature had almost been paralyzed, wetting themselves. Open the gate to the world of the undead! Suaping shouted. Astral powers surged out from him. A primitive door began to manifest in the air behind him, becoming increasingly tangible. As one saw through the door, there seemed to be something terrifying looking down at the mortal world. Two dark skeleton hands grabbed the door frame as they pulled their owner's body out. That was the door to the undead realm. Undead creatures would come out from there. Since Suaping had merged with the little skeleton, he was also able to use the little skeleton's skills. That was the benefit of a battle pet warrior merging with the battle pet. Boom! The door opened. Something on the other side was opening the door. The next second, the profound energy of the undead gushed out from the door. The sky behind Suaping darkened. Dark clouds gathered, even the atmosphere was becoming eerie. After a short, silent moment, many soldiers riding on skeleton dragons dashed out. Those soldiers that were shouting and running toward the wild beasts looked like ancient giants. Many spheres of darkness came out from the door. They spun in the air and descended into the throng, and then a certain mist began to emerge from those wild beasts. Their skins shrank, it was as if their life force were being sucked out. Come on! Suaping shouted and flew to the wild beasts. He was one man, but he was as powerful as a large number of cavalry and foot soldiers. What the heck is that? I cannot believe he can open a portal to the realm of the undead. Oh my god, what is that skill? Is he an undead creature? Damn it, I feel that something terrifying inside that door is gazing at us, and it's going to come out at any minute. The Beast Kings were terrified by what they saw. All of a sudden, they heard an indifferent snort. Humph! All the beasts felt their hearts skip a beat. Each beast felt it differently, but all beasts realized that the terror in their hearts was being alleviated. The next second, the blue sky above the swarm of beasts turned red. A huge, blood-red creature came out from among the myriads of beasts. The creature cried sharply and dashed toward Suaping, who was on a killing spree. It's Lord Bloodwings. Lord Bloodwings is here. It's too late for that human to run away. The Beast Kings were thrilled to see that blood-red creature. They were no longer calling Suaping a puny thing, but a human. Suaping's actions had made the beasts recognize his race. Fate state. Suaping saw that blood-red behemoth heading toward him. The fact that the behemoth was at the fate state didn't cause him any surprise nor shock. When he said that he was going to take care of the north side, he was prepared to fight the fate state creatures. The little skeleton and the Inferno Dragon weren't able to defeat a Fate State Beast King just yet. However, the little skeleton was almost immortal by relying on the inherent skill from the Skeleton King. Not even those at the Fate State could kill the little skeleton. A case in point would be the thousand-eyed demon beast back at the corridor. Now that he was merged with the little skeleton, his combat strength was increasing drastically. He could fight a Fate State Beast King. Whoosh! The Bloodwing dashed out from the red mist. It was a beast with 4 blood-red wings which stirred up a scorching heat. It also had 3 golden feathers on its head, which could be counted as secret weapons. It was able to cut a mountain with 1 feather. Look at him. Is he the so-called Tower Master of the humans? Humph! Bloodwings gazed at Suaping with its golden eyes. All of a sudden, it violently flapped its wings and several fireballs came out, spinning around. The color of the fire was different from the average sort. In the meantime, Suaping felt space around him was moving. The next second, he found himself right in front of the fireballs. Space folding. That was a skill that those at the Fate State could use to manipulate space. Such an attack would have caught many unaware, but not Suaping. He simply had too much experience in fighting against Fate State beasts. They always do this to bring their enemies closer. Nothing is ever new. Suaping sneered. It seemed that he had anticipated meeting those fireballs directly. He unsheathed his sword and infused it with dark Ashura energy to slash at the air. Bang! The fireballs were sliced in 2. The fire disappeared. The energy structure that was sustaining the fireballs was destroyed. Lord Bloodwings wore a grave look after looking at that cut. Phoenix destruction. The Bloodwing flew higher in the sky. The red mist was getting thicker and thicker as the beast unleashed more energy, blasting away a virtual bird-shaped wave the next second. While gliding through a curve, the blast wave traveled toward Suaping. The bird-shaped attack was also flapping its wings. Space was twisting, which was a result of the scorching heat. Suaping felt that the space around him was fixed, preventing him from teleporting. He was still weaker than Fate State beings when it came to space manipulation, he would have to break himself free with brute force. However, Suaping wasn't planning on slashing space open to break himself free. Kill! Suaping opened his coldly gleaming eyes. Astral powers were boiling inside him. He went to the north side not to run, but to fight. He would keep the north side safe so that the continent's last line of defense wasn't besieged from all sides. He drew his sword. The buzzing sound echoed in the sky. The next second, all light surrounding Suaping was disappearing, as if extinguishing. The space around the sword became pitch dark. Annihilation. Void sword. Come on. Suaping raised his head and stared at the Bloodwing above him in the sky. He slashed at the bird. The ray of sword light penetrated everything in the way. The frozen space was crushed into pieces, leaving behind a mark in the air. The bird-shaped blast wave was halved by that ray of sword light. The most shocking thing was, the ray of sword light didn't stop there, it had reached the Bloodwing in an instant. No, I don't believe it. The Bloodwing's round eyes were full of disbelief. It could not conceive how that supernatural power came from that human, such a power should only belong to those at the star rank. It was a power the Bloodwing aspired to attain. Is this human at the star rank? The next second, the large beast was unable to conjure a single thought. Bang! The Bloodwing cracked from the middle, its head and chest were cut open. It felt as if the world had lost its color in that scene. Following that, blood poured down over the beasts swarming on the ground. The dozens of beast kings that had eagerly waited for the Bloodwing froze on the spot. 1 second before they were stunned by the blast wave. The next second revealed such a sight. What just happened? The beast kings found that they could barely think. That was Lord Bloodwings. A beast king at the Fate State. How could the human kill the Lord Bloodwings with one cut? Horrifying. All the beast kings felt their hearts were racing and their minds were in a daze. They could not think. Phew! Suaping breathed in relief while still up in the air. His mind was getting somewhat fatigued. He looked away from the Bloodwing's corpse. Without any hesitation, he dived down to face the beast swarm. The void sword that he had learned in the world of Golden Crows was a skill of his own creation, which had some destructive rules integrated. He had tried it before, average Fate State Beast Kings were unable to survive it. That was why he was courageous enough to head to the north side by himself. Of course, he would be less confident if the Fate State Beast King was especially strong or if several of them joined forces. After all, he had to exert great strength to manifest that skill. He could easily restore his energy with revivals in the cultivation sites, but in real life, he could only use that sword attack 3 times. Even with the help of the little skeleton, he had to finish the Bloodwing as soon as possible. Boom! Suaping dashed out, reaching the supersonic speed. A shrill cry was heard. Behind him you could see the Bloodwing falling from the sky. The powerful creature had become a thing of the past. Bang! Suaping threw himself into the throng of beasts. He stomped on the ground and made it cave in. The beasts nearby died. He rushed forward, smashing all the nearby beasts to death. Kill, kill, kill. Suaping ran around wildly and killed non-stop. He was covered in blood, with hair disheveled. He held the sword. The wild beasts were overwhelmed by grief and terror. Run! Run! Why, but why? Lord Bloodwings died. Is this human? Get out of my way! The Beast Kings in the throng were having a mental breakdown. They were no longer in any shape to fight. They chose to flee. What Suaping did just then was too scary. He had killed what the beasts admired with a single cut. He had also snuffed out their violence and courage. That small human looked even more terrifying than a demon from hell. The beasts instantly collapsed in disorder. Beast Kings were running for their lives, Suaping was targeting them specifically. As for the other beasts, Suaping would just stomp them or smash them to death. The guy was aiming at the leaders. The Beast Kings were escaping and they, too, stomped many beasts to death by accident. The wild beasts were in disarray, they were crying and howling. It was as if the ones facing a crisis were the beasts, not the humans. Suaping didn't offer any pathways to survival. He caught up with the Ocean State Beast Kings easily. After all, they had yet to learn any space skills and were unable to teleport. They had some skills which could aid in their escape, but they were still not fast enough when Suaping could teleport. Show mere. Some of the Ocean State beasts were able to speak the human language. They dropped to their knees and tried begging when Suaping approached them. However, Suaping ran past those Beast Kings directly. The next second, there would be a perfectly clean cut on the Beast Kings' necks. Suaping knew that those beasts had been excited after seeing so many innocent and helpless people. None of them ever showed mercy. He had to finish them all. Behind him, the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound were also on a killing spree. The undead creatures that came out from the floating door in the air helped. The wild beasts were being routed. It was unbelievable, but it was happening. 10 minutes passed. The battle stopped. Suaping was standing next to a beast whose fur was drenched in blood. The beast was dozens of meters tall and its fur was as hard as steel needles. That beast had been chopped to pieces, beyond dead. Suaping looked into the distance. He could no longer hear the beasts. With him at the center, a large area was an ocean of blood with mountains of corpses. There had to be hundreds of thousands of them. The light of the early morning sun was cast onto Suaping and onto the blood, glistening. Suaping was panting. He stuck his sword onto the beast and sat down. He had overwhelmed the beasts, but to kill that many of them within that short time had exhausted him. Whoosh! The white bones turned into a glow and transformed back into the little skeleton. The little fellow stood next to Suaping. Maintaining the merged state was tiring for both Suaping and the little skeleton. Even though the little skeleton could turn blood into astral powers, it was still hard to recover physically and mentally in the midst of battle. Phew! Suaping exhaled in relief. He wiped the blood off his hands on his armor, which he had gotten from the old Dragon King. It was quite the strong void state artifact, it had several special effects. Having cleaned the blood off his hands, Suaping took out his phone and texted his location. I'm here right now. Where is the swarm of beasts closest to me on the north side? Back in the command center, Gu Siping, who was busy mobilizing the titled battle pet warriors, was surprised by Suaping's message. He looked at the location and replied, "You are right where the swarm of beasts was. Have you made contact with them?" "I've already defeated them," Suaping said. His weariness wasn't evident in his tone. Gu Siping stood in a daze for a second. He signaled a legendary battle pet warrior to look at the reports being sent from the north side. Soon, the map showed up. Gu Siping's face turned pale. The beast tide was no longer there. So, Suaping had routed those beasts, all by himself. He remembered that there was a level 9 beast swarm over there. This guy. Gu Siping took a deep breath, he was even more wary of Suaping after such an outcome. However, since that was a time when all talents were required to be on deck and he had not heard back from the tower, he knew that the more powerful Suaping was, the better it would be for him and the human society. Nicely done, Gu Siping praised and continued, how are you feeling? If you can continue, there's a level 8 group of beasts on the move 350,000 meters to your left. The beasts may soon move elsewhere, but I think you can find them. Suaping said nothing, he simply hung up the call. Gu Siping heard his phone beep. What a punk! A glint of coldness flashed past his eyes. He refocused his mind on what they were talking about before. After the call ended, Suaping stood up from the dead beast he was sitting on. He pulled out the sword from the place he had left it. All right, time for the next round. Suaping said to the dark dragon hound resting next to him. The dark dragon hound wiggled and changed into dragon form. Suaping looked at the little skeleton, once again, it turned into a white blur and merged with Suaping. Ferocious white bones grew out from Suaping again. Whoosh! Suaping hopped onto the dark dragon hound and flew to his left with the inferno dragon. He would get there in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes was a short time, but he was still far away from the wild beasts. It was still too far for him to sense them. While Suaping was hurrying to the next battleground, other people were hustling and bustling in other areas. Class A titled battle pet warriors of the 3rd Legion, come with me to the northwest side. We need to help our legendary battle pet warriors. A middle-aged titled battle pet warrior stood on a 9th rank dragon eagle. His determined voice boomed. Facing him on the plaza was a dense crowd. All of them were at the titled rank. They were from different base cities and even other continents. They were the last titled battle pet warriors that humans had. Class A titled battle pet warriors were those who were at the later position of the titled rank. Class B referred to the intermediate position of the titled rank. The pin that the middle-aged man wore indicated that he was from the Tang family, the most powerful family on the continent. The man was Tang Zanlin's second brother. He was at the peak of the titled rank. Over 20 titled battle pet warriors at the later position answered his call. The middle-aged man looked at them and shouted, "Come with me. Let's go." Yes, the 20 titled battle pet warriors shouted at the same time. They were no longer the big shots that people respected. They were just soldiers. The middle-aged man left with the 20 titled battle pet warriors and hurried to their battleground. Soon, an old man stepped up, also at the peak of the titled rank. He glanced over at the people gathered at the plaza and shouted, "Class B titled battle pet warriors of the 3rd Legion, come with me. Let's go." Yes. Yes. A legion of 20 titled battle pet warriors moved to the center of the plaza. In the meantime, at the command center, the military advisors wore grave looks, the wild beasts were too vicious. Every side needed reinforcements. All the legendary battle pet warriors were on the field. The only ones remaining were Gu Siping and the legendary battle pet warriors in charge of sending out messages. The legendary battle pet warriors had to deliver all the urgent messages. Gu Siping also had to stay there. He could not abandon his commanding post for anything, unless the wild beasts got too close to the defense line. The north side is okay, but the other three sides cannot hold on much longer. We have 2 more legendary warriors injured and another one died. The wild beasts are coming in faster and faster. Almost all the sentinel stations and the micro-communication stations have been destroyed. Half of the map has darkened. The advisors were intently analyzing the map, trying to figure out a solution. Aside from the north side, which was still lit up, the other sides had darkened. They had no way to know what was going on over there, neither could they know how many wild beasts there were. "Sir, I was wondering if we should tell the legendary warrior up north to come back and support other sides. We can reassign people to cover the north. To have them rotate, if you will." A nervous middle-aged advisor said, "The other places are under great pressure. The man in the north has defeated several groups of wild beasts. We have to consider that the other wild beasts coming from the sea have not arrived yet. How about we have that legendary battle pet warrior go and help the other sides? He could go back to the northern position if more beasts show up." "Nonsense," another advisor scolded the first one, "that legendary battle pet warrior is fighting over there all by himself. Even though he's powerful, he is still human. He also gets tired, you know? How can you make him go to another place? He needs to rest. He needs to breathe." The middle-aged advisor said nothing in reply. They had originally thought that all legendary battle pet warriors were as good as the one in the north. They later realized this was not the case. The other sides were supported by at least 5 legendary battle pet warriors, and yet they were losing. On the other hand, one man in the north was taking care of all the wild beasts. "Yes, I agree. Legendary battle pet warriors do get tired, they're not gods." "That's the truth," another advisor jumped in. "We can assign more work to those who are able, but we can't ask an able man to work himself to death." The first advisor remained silent. He, too, didn't want the warrior up north to end up exhausted. He would be more helpful in future battles if he could take some rest and recover. Gu Siping shook his head. "The one in the north is at the fate state, same as me. Getting rid of those wild beasts is not too hard for him. I'll ask if he's willing to relocate and help in other places." Exhausted? Gu Siping didn't care if Suiping was tired or not. Since he didn't want to stay in command and wanted to fight, then fights he would get. Whether Suiping could survive or not, he would still benefit from the outcome. Suiping could kill more wild beasts later if he managed to survive. On the other hand, if he were to die, Gu Siping would be happy to have one less trouble to deal with after that crisis. "Fate state. Same as you." The advisors were surprised. They didn't know the legendary warrior in the north was that powerful. No wonder. He was able to take care of the north side all by himself. That explained it. Gu Siping contacted Suiping at once. "Are you there? Several groups of wild beasts are gathering at the east, merging into a level 9 swarm. They cannot handle it. They need your help." This time, Gu Siping left a message for Suiping instead of calling him. "The wild beasts haven't gone to the north side where you are. I'll have someone else guard that area in case more of them are on the way." In the north. Beep. Suiping was resting after having killed another group of wild beasts. He heard the beeping and saw the message. A private message? What is he thinking? Suiping sneered. It was quite an urgent matter, and yet Gu Siping didn't call. Gu Siping was definitely not afraid of disturbing Suiping. Even if Suiping was fighting and was unable to answer the call, he would know that someone was trying to contact him. He would return the call as soon as he could. He would have missed that private message if he were in battle. After some thought, Suiping called back, you need reinforcements in the east, right? I can go there. Have some people keep an eye on the north side in the meantime. Gu Siping didn't want to say something out loud, but he could no longer hide it since it was Suiping who made the call. He said directly, yes. How are you doing? Can you keep going? He asked as if he cared. Beep. But the reply he received was the busy tone. Gu Siping swallowed his anger and pocketed his phone. Let's go. Suiping patted a blood-stained dark dragon hound. He jumped onto the dark dragon hound's back. At the same time, he told the Inferno Dragon and the little skeleton to go back to their contract spaces so they could rest a bit. The dark dragon hound didn't bark, the fights had been exhausting. The pet hound flew toward the direction Suiping had indicated. After about 20 minutes Suiping reached the east side. He saw a mess there. There were hundreds of thousands of birds flying around. Riding on each bird was 1 or 2 battle pet warriors who were at the 8th rank. There were titled battle pet warriors that were working to make a formation across the distance. There was a dense mass of beasts. Suiping could faintly see the end. There had to be 700,000 to 800,000 beasts and most of them were advanced beasts. Shui Yunzhen. Suiping saw a familiar person. She was being sieged by the wild beasts and the 4 battle pets around her were drenched in blood. 8 beast kings and many 9th rank beasts surrounded them. The beasts were using long-range strikes to blast at the place where Shui Yunzhen was standing. More beasts were surrounding 2 other men who weren't far from Shui Yunzhen, Yan Yuxiu and Jing Shen. The 3 were in grave danger. Dozens of titled battle pet warriors in the air were trying to disturb the beasts but they seemed to be too scared to go near, they were unable to distract the beast kings effectively. Roar! One beast king bellowed. Afterward, a storm gathered above its head. A whip formed by wind lashed out, although Shui Yunzhen wasn't the target. They beast aimed for the titled battle pet warriors in the sky. As seen by that beast king, killing those titled battle pet warriors was like killing some bugs. Those titled battle pet warriors were bugs of the annoying kind. Oh, gods! An old man wearing a dark green robe was startled by the strike. He shouted at once, "Run!" However, the wind whip had reached them. Somewhere in the distance, the battle pets that were busy fighting against other beasts felt that their masters were in danger. They hurried over but it was already too late. Some battle pets were so anxious that they resorted to using skills that were too hard for them. They were burning their lives away. Bang! Suddenly, a ray of glaring golden light dispersed the darkness and leaped into the sight of the titled battle pet warriors. It was a massive golden fist. The punch dispersed the wind-based whip. All the titled battle pet warriors were in a daze. A man covered in blood charged over. He flew past the stunned titled battle pet warriors and went straight toward the beast swarm. Come on out! Suiping opened up 2 swirls. The little skeleton and the Inferno Dragon came out. Roar! The Inferno Dragon let out a roar able to shake a large area. The roar disrupted the entire battlefield. Both humans and beasts felt the presence of that dragon. The beast kings could not help but turn their gazes over to see the dragon. They saw that the dragon was bathing in fire and standing on lightning bolts. Merging. In the meantime, the little skeleton had quietly merged with Suiping. A violent wisp of energy was spread over. Suiping held his sword while covered in white bones. He was a hellish demon that had entered the mortal world. Come on! Suiping shouted and flew to attack the Beast King that formed the whip of wind. The Beast King was only at the ocean state, wide-eyed, it felt Suiping's killing intent. How could a human be this violent? Boom! Suiping stomped the Beast King. The Beast King's head was crushed and the ground caved in. The other Beast Kings nearby didn't have enough time to react. That happened too abruptly. Suiping's appearance and the dragon's roar were completely unexpected. Suiping! It's Mr. Su! Shui Yunzhen was scared. She looked at Suiping as he stomped on the Beast King, it was shocking. Suaping had crushed the head of a beast king the size of a mountain. The beast king's body was also cracked. How appalling! Yang Yuxiu and Jing Shen saw Suaping as well. That was the first time they had seen in a battle. They were gladly surprised as well as stunned. Even they felt a bit scared of Suaping. Go to hell! Having finished that beast king, he rushed to deal with another one. That beast king was at the void state. The beast king snarled, "Come over and help me. Let's finish him first." The beast king felt the pressure. Even before Suaping broke the formation nearby, the beast king already knew that it wasn't strong enough to deal with the human. Several beast kings in the throng immediately froze the space. They wanted to contain Suaping that way. The beast kings were working together. They were unlike the beast kings Suaping had encountered in the north. Suaping clearly felt that his motions were slowing down. Also, he could forcefully teleport away. Break. If space was locked, he would break it open. Void sword again. A destructive force merged into the sword. A dark crack appeared in the air at the speed of lightning. The crack was spread across half of the field. The beast king who was crying for help was halved. In the meantime, the beast kings nearby didn't have time to run away, they were torn open as soon as the dark crack reached them. It was like the strike was from another dimension. The crack had cut open about 8 beast kings. Many more of the average kind had died. One cut and countless beasts perished. There was a moment devoid of sound at the battleground. Everyone was in a daze. They could not believe their eyes. The beast kings were also dumbstruck. Is that what a legendary battle pet warrior could do? One cut and he tore a path open in the middle of the beast swarm. It was terrifying. Many monitoring eagles were hovering in the sky. The beasts didn't pay attention to them since they had no life signature. Those eagles were filming the battle and broadcasting live to all base cities. The flying eagles were all over the place, aside from the north side at the moment. The general public and the battle pet warriors who had yet to enter the battlefield, all of them were waiting anxiously in front of their TVs. They were praying. At the moment, everyone saw what Suaping had done just then on TV. That scene stirred up a huge sensation. People were stunned speechless. They had gotten too nervous before, when the legendary battle pet warriors were seized by the wild beasts. Some people were so desperate that they had opened up their coal gas tanks, preparing to kill themselves. However, at that very moment, the man made an appearance like hope sent by God. He moved away from the mist. He had shown hope for everyone. Those who were ready to kill themselves stopped what they were doing right then. He did that in the north. At the command center, the advisors saw that on the screen as well. They had seen what Suaping had done in the north. They knew that Suaping was gallant, he didn't run wildly among the beast kings. However, they had not seen him using this sword skill back then. That guy. Gu Siping saw the video as well. He, too, appeared to be stunned. Even he had felt terrified by that sword move. He knew that he couldn't have survived that cut. He could not believe that a freak had grown that much under his watch. He should be at the peak of the fate state and close to the star rank. Gu Siping decided. Back in the battlefield. The silence lasted for 1 second. Soon, noise broke out again. The beasts were still issuing their cries, but those that were close to Suaping kept quiet. Those beast kings that were fighting Shui Yunzan also stopped, gazing at Suaping while terrified. What a freak! Whoosh! A void state beast king vanished on the spot. It had run away. The beast king reappeared behind the beast swarm, it crushed many beasts to death. Chapter 704 The general assault begins. Could they possibly fight someone who killed one of them with one attack? In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 8 beast kings that surrounded Shui Yunzan had been killed and the other 6 ran away. Suaping flew past her quickly and said, "Take care of yourself." He had already caught up to an ocean state beast king thousands of meters away by the time he finished his sentence. Bang! He slashed and disrupted the multiple skills that the Beast King unleashed after turning around. The energy it gathered was split up. Sua Ping stepped on the beast as its blood splashed out and then moved on with the counterforce. The corpse that he stomped upon was flung back against the beast tide, leaving a ravine hundreds of meters long. Yet again the terrifying force stupefied Shui Yunzhen, just as she had gotten out of her stupor. Not even a void state Beast King was able to compare to Sua Ping in terms of physical strength. Boom! Boom! Rushing and dodging, Sua Ping chased the fleeing demon beasts. His speed was extremely appalling. He crossed hundreds of meters after each step, and his feet left pits dozens of meters deep on the ground like gigantic war hammers. All the demon beasts within the range of the pits were killed without being able to dodge. Sua Ping was absolutely unstoppable as he went through the overwhelming tide of beasts, just like the god of killing. Whoever saw that scene ended up being too shocked to speak. The people who were in the bases behind the defense line were both surprised and excited. The battle pet warriors who were preparing for battle even shed tears. They were prepared to sacrifice themselves to protect the last line of defense and their families behind them. But at this moment, they saw hope. Kill them all! Far away, Yan Wuxiu recovered from the shock caused by Sua Ping's astonishing attack. With determination for battle bursting out of his eyes, he got rid of his tiredness and roared, charging to the left side with his battle pets. Roar! His pets, influenced by Yan Wuxiu's emotions, roared furiously and were brutal as they fought back. The Beast Kings surrounding Yan Wuxiu were still horrified by Sua Ping's attack. Two of them were instantly wounded and thrown away when Yan Wuxiu attacked them. They crashed into another group of beasts. The other Beast Kings were infuriated when they realized what was going on, but none of them dared to confront Yan Wuxiu, who seemed to be raving mad. It would take time even if they wanted to kill that human. However, the monster that was even more horrible was on a rampage as he was heading in their direction. Their thoughts were all about retreating. On the other hand, Jing Shen, too, roared and attacked without holding back. Soon, he forced the demon beasts back, and he approached Sua Ping while he fought. "I'm coming to help you." Far away, Shui Yunzhen rose to the sky and quickly flashed to stand with Jing Shen, who was nearest to her. The 6 Beast Kings around Jing Shen were scared after hearing the roar. They looked at each other and retreated simultaneously as if having reached a consensus. Run! The Void State Beast Kings simply flashed and escaped, but the Ocean State ones weren't so lucky. All of them cried bitterly when their fellows were gone. Jing Shen wouldn't miss that opportunity for the world. He was a Void State legend anyway, and he was like a raging ape while in the merged state. He smashed 2 Ocean State behemoths to death with his giant stick in the blink of an eye. When Jing Shen reunited with Shui Yunzhen, the latter looked at him and said with a smile, "You're not old at all. Your wounds are no heavier than mine." Jing Shen laughed and then thought of Sua Ping. He looked for him, only to be appalled by what he saw. Sua Ping had already marched to the depths of the beast tide. A river of blood a dozen kilometers long was left in his wake. No other demon beasts dared to tread upon the broken bodies. As a result, the bloody path behind him was left empty. Sua Ping had killed as many demon beasts as they did while working together. The higher ranking among the demon beasts that Sua Ping executed were the Beast Kings. 5 of their bodies could be found on the bloody path, and 2 of them had been void state creatures. Is he really a legendary warrior? Jing Shen gasped and asked in shock. Shui Yunzhen was just as shocked as he was. She said with a bitter smile, "Didn't they say that he was at the fate state? Why do I feel like he's even stronger than our leader?" The previous attack was really horrifying. Jing Shen nodded in agreement. "Enough chit-chat. Let's go there and help." "Okay, let's kill those sons of Bai *Ches. Shui Yunzhen roared. Jing Shen didn't know what to say when she behaved even manlier than him, but he was already used to it and simply flashed out. Boom! Sua Ping mostly chased after the Beast Kings in the tide. He simply ignored the other demon beasts and killed them by crashing or stepping on them, not even bothering to attack directly. Very soon, Suaping reached Yuexiu. The beast kings around him had already run away. As he looked at Yuexiu, Suaping paused for a moment and asked, "Can you endure some more?" Yuexiu was drenched with blood, and half of the blood came from himself. He had killed 2 of the 5 void state demon beasts that surrounded him, but he was heavily wounded too. After all, those 2 demon beasts were extremely ferocious. "Thanks." Yuexiu wiped the blood on his face after seeing Suaping and put on a smile. "These are just minor injuries. I can still fight." "Okay." Suaping nodded and left him there. He quickly chased after the escaping beast kings. Bang! 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 He left giant pits in the beast tide as he gave chase. All the fleeing ocean state beast kings were using their life-saving skills. Some were carried by tornadoes, while others dug into the ground. Suaping didn't bother to chase those that went underground. Although he could chase them, that wasn't his forte, so his speed was limited. As for the demon beasts that were running using other means, he simply flashed and chased each and every one of them. Very soon, one ocean state beast king after another was killed by him. The previously intimidating beast tide was torn apart. After Suaping killed and drove away all the demon beasts, Shui Yunzhen, Yuexiu and Jing Shen, 3 void state legends, went on a killing spree to annihilate the beast tide. The demon beasts fell quickly in front of them as if they were weeds that were being mowed. Everybody saw the horrifying combat ability of the 3 legends when they weren't suppressed by the beast kings. However, they were even more excited by Suaping, who had managed to scare off all the beast kings that had surrounded the 3 legends. The beast tide was dealt with in merely 15 minutes, there was blood and bodies over dozens of kilometers. Suaping returned from the hunt and gave a gigantic dragon head to the Inferno Dragon as a snack. Shui Yunzhen, Yuexiu and the others were all too stunned to talk when they saw the dragon head. It belonged to a peak void state dragon that was the strongest in the tide. It was even stronger than the 3 battle pets that Suaping had sold them. That was quite understandable. After all, those battle pets were the ones that Qin Dehuang and the others didn't pick. They were the weakest of the 40 battle pets sold. That dragon was exactly what gave Yuexiu and his companions the biggest trouble. After all, while most of the beasts running in the tide were weak, they could unleash destructive damage when their 9th rank skills resonated with the others while coordinated by a leader. Whoosh! Suaping returned to meet them. His body was covered in blood, and the intimating vibe around him gave them a lot of pressure. "Go back and treat yourselves," said Suaping, who noticed that all of them were wounded. Jing Shen said with troubling feelings, "Thank you for saving our lives, Boss Su." "Thanks, Brother Su," Yuexiu also said. Suaping waved his hands and replied, "We're comrades. No need to thank me. The beast tides aren't over yet. Go back and take some rest. There are more battles to come." The 2 of them nodded solemnly. "I'll be defending the east, heal yourselves for the moment. You can take over once again if anything happens in the north," Suaping said to them. It wasn't until that moment that they realized, Suaping had been originally deployed to the north. Since he was there, did it mean that the north was left undefended? How are things in the north?" asked Shui Yunzhen anxiously. Yuexiu and Jing Shen also seemed nervous as they looked at him. If the north had been invaded by the beasts because Suaping went there to help, they would certainly be to blame. "I killed several beast waves in the north. No more beasts have shown up, so I had the time to stop by. But I think they'll arrive soon," said Suaping. Everybody was stumped when they understood what he implied. No more beasts have shown up? Doesn't it mean that Suaping killed the beasts faster than they could reach the shore? All of them looked at Suaping as if he were a monster. The Fate State combat ability was really horrifying. "Go now," Suaping urged them. They woke up from their shock and bid Suaping goodbye with mixed feelings. Once they left, Suaping went to see a beast king that was as huge as a hill. He sat on the top of the creature to take a break. Suo Ping sat alone in the middle of an ocean of blood. He seemed rather lonely and heroic. The reinforcements that came from the sky soon received the order to retreat. They were asked to leave the east side to Suo Ping. One person to defend an entire side. One after the other, everybody made their escape. Before they left, they couldn't help but look at the man who was alone in the mountain of corpses. There was no one else around, except for a dragon and a dog. Very soon, everybody was gone, and Suo Ping was left alone. Only 5 minutes later, the Beast King's body under his feet started to tremble. It was not that the body was turning into a zombie, that tremor had been caused by an earthquake. Suo Ping was going to cancel the fusion when he sensed the earthquake. His peaceful eyes became cold again as he stared at the end of the ocean of blood. There, dust was rising, and a looming shadow was drawing close. He took a deep breath and rose from the Beast King's body before he clenched his sword. He grabbed the sword because he was afraid he might accidentally drop once he was exhausted in the coming battle. He was quite worn out from the consecutive battles. Even though he had fought countless times in the cultivation sites and his stamina was quite good, he could replenish himself by dying, but not there. He only had one life and limited stamina. "Let's continue," said Suo Ping in a low voice. Both the Dark Dragon Hound and the Inferno Dragon rose from the ground and forgot their weariness. They were prepared for battle again. They were not tireless, though, they were simply stubborn and insane enough to forget their weariness. Boom! The earthquake was getting louder and louder. Suo Ping had already seen the front end of the beast tide, and even some of the demon beasts inside. Kill them all! When he was several thousand meters from the beast tide, Suo Ping went on a rampage and summoned his astral powers to charge at the creatures. He was drowned in the beast tide the next moment. The magnificent and unstoppable beast tide's momentum was instantly swallowed by Suo Ping. Then, it was completely halted by the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound. Another chaotic battle began. The beast tide on the east was blocked. When the legendary warriors retreated, including Yuxiu and the titled legions, there were no more incoming beasts on the east front, as if they would have already left. The advisors in the command room focused their attention in the other directions. The beast tides were moving on the north again and reinforcements were needed. Yuxiu, Shui Yunzhen and the others were in the middle of their treatment when Gu Siping summoned them. Without a word, they rushed out of the infirmary, donned their armor, and marched to the north. Beasts approached the southern barricades when they went to aid the north side. A dozen legends reinforced the south, one of them perishing in the process. The rest of them were unable to finish off the beasts quickly, and as a result, more and more beasts were joining. It was harder and harder to block them. The battle became disadvantageous. The south was soon in danger, and no more reinforcements could be sent. Also, considering the situation in the south, it was hard to resist the beasts in the wilderness, no matter how many reinforcements were deployed. The west was actually quite safe when the south sent the alarm. Qin Duhuang and Zhou Tianlin were defenders in that direction. They weren't large in number, but their defenses turned out to be quite effective. Gu Siping had thought that the west would be in most need of reinforcements. After all, Qin Duhuang and Zhou Tianlin were new legendary warriors with unremarkable combat ability. He didn't expect that they would have the power to defend the west for so long, which would save him a lot of trouble. The beast tide in the south has already merged with others, resulting in a level 10-1 with 100 beast kings. It's pointless to resist such a beast tide. I think we should tell them to retreat. Lure the demon beasts into the ambushing area and kill them there. The advisors looked at the map. At that moment, the south had already become the demon beasts' point of breakthrough. Gu Siping gloomily looked at the map and said, "Might as well swap the southern defenders with the eastern one. Let the guy on the east go to the south." All the advisors were surprised by his statement. They looked askance at him. Let the legend on the east go there? But he had already fought in the north for a long time to beat the beast tide over there, and he was holding the east so tightly that no beasts passed the barricades. Now, he has to go to the south? He would be exhausted even if he were a machine. Noticing their expression, Gu Siping remarked casually, "As I said, he's a Fate State warrior, just like me. As long as there are no Fate State demon beasts in the tide, he can kill all of them with ease. Defending the north and the east is no big deal for a Fate State legend. If there are no Fate State beasts hiding in the southern tide, he can finish them off by raising a hand. The power of a Fate State legend is beyond your imagination." He spoke in a casual and confident voice. What he said left the advisors surprised and suspicious. Could a Fate State legendary really that much stronger? Gu Siping sneered upon noticing their expression. The answer was an obvious no. Even if a Fate State expert were made of iron, he would eventually be exhausted. However, Gu Siping simply wanted to send Suiping there. "Aren't you proud? Don't you always challenge me? I'm giving you a chance to make great achievements. Everybody is watching you. You'll be everybody's hero once you take care of the demon beasts in the south. That is, provided that you can return alive." He was the only Fate State warrior in the world. The other legends couldn't see through his statement, as they didn't have a clear grasp on a Fate State warrior's combat ability. If he said it was possible, then it should be. If Suiping was unable to make it, that would be his own fault. Isn't it too? An old advisor hesitated, as he felt that the arrangement wasn't really good. Gu Siping was about to say something else, when a piece of emergency intelligence was delivered. They were all appalled after hearing the intelligence report. Fate State Beast Kings had emerged in the south. Also, there was not one, but 3 of them. The 3 Fate State Beast Kings had appeared behind the beast tide without hiding their aura. They couldn't have been detected if they had hidden it, but they didn't, so the surveillance equipment spotted them easily when the energy indicators went off the charts. The advisors looked at each other in fright. Gu Siping was just as stunned. He looked rather awful at the moment. He had just stated that there were no Fate State demon beasts, but then some arrived in the next instant, which made it hard for him to continue. 3 Fate State demon beasts. "They must be the real troops of the deep caves," said a middle-aged advisor in a shivering voice. The old advisor looked at Gu Siping and said, "Master, let the southern defenders retreat. I think it's time to end the siege battle and focus on the last defense battle." Gu Siping was rather frustrated. He would have sent Suiping there if there were no Fate State Beast Kings in the south. He knew that Suiping had to be exhausted after fighting for such a long time. He would either die in the south or awkwardly sound the retreat. In the first case, Gu Siping didn't care. Even if Suiping was sung over after he died, a dead man was of no threat to him. In the second case, the heroic impression that Suiping had left on everybody when he reinforced the east would inevitably collapse. He didn't really care if his image collapsing would influence the bottom-level residents, who were too weak to be of any concern. He could easily send anyone with a title rank to wipe out an entire city. "I think." Gu Siping considered for a moment. He was about to finish the sentence when another report was delivered. All the advisors gasped when they heard the news. Gu Siping wore a solemn expression. The West. Fate State Beast Kings had been spotted in the West too. There were 2 of them. They weren't even bothering to conceal their auras. All the defenders on the formerly safe west side had to retreat when the Fate State Beast Kings appeared. After all, they were legendary warriors, but none were at the Fate State. "The demon beasts of the deep caves are getting serious," mumbled the old advisor. Gu Siping was quite grim. They would have to abort their defense plans once the Fate State beasts joined the battle. Those high-ranking creatures could easily kill the legendary warriors deployed in the wilderness. "Master, please ask all legendary warriors to come back immediately," said an advisor after realizing what had happened. Gu Siping nodded and was about to issue the command, but then another piece of news arrived. Unsurprisingly, Fate State beasts were also spotted in the north. Someone looked at Gu Siping weirdly. Terrible news were repeatedly delivered right when Gu Siping was about to talk. Was that a coincidence? "Order everybody to retreat behind the defense lines," said Gu Siping quickly as he realized that he might be jinxed. He was relieved after saying that. 5 minutes later, there was news from the east that Fate State beasts had arrived. All the legendary warriors and the titled legions fighting outside the defense lines were shocked to hear the news. They immediately followed orders and retreated. Qin Duhuang and Zhou Tianlin had been fighting on the west side. Their combat ability was enhanced by merging with their pets, and they could make use of their pets' void state abilities thanks to the bond they shared. That was also helpful for them to understand the secrets of space. Fate State Beast Kings. Qin Duhuang was quite shocked when he received the message in the middle of the battle. The beast tied in front of his eyes where it was likely that Fate State beasts were lurking became blood-curdling. They would probably be unable to escape by the time they saw the enemy. Just run! Qin Duhuang shouted at Zhou Tianlin, there are Fate State beasts. He turned around and immediately fled. Zhou Tianlin was stunned for a moment. Just like a bucket of cold water poured over his head, his scalding fighting spirit was cooled. He followed Qin Duhuang as they made their getaway. In the north, both Shui Yunzhen and Ye Wuxiu received the message. Their expressions changed as they ordered the titled legion to retreat. In the east, Sui Ping received the messages and breathed softly. It seemed that the army of the deep caves was no longer able to wait. They launched a final attack. The Fate State demon beasts were already there. It would be a real test. Whether or not they could secure the place depended on their following performance. Let's go back to take some rest. Sui Ping cancelled the merged state and jumped to the dark dragon hound's back. He recalled the Inferno Dragon and petted the hound's head. The dark dragon hound understood his intention and quickly returned to the defense line. Close to 12 minutes later, Sui Ping went back to the Longjiang base city behind the defense line. He staggered and nearly fell over when he jumped off from the hound to enter the shop. He was able to keep it together on the battlefield because he had to stay wary of the Void State and even Fate State demon beasts that might ambush him. But he couldn't resist any longer now that he was in a safe area. He was almost worn out from the ongoing battles. Brother! You! Soling Yu and Tang Ruyan ran to him from the back of the shop. They were both shocked to see Sui Ping stagger and hurriedly gave him a hand. Tang Ruyan saw the tiredness in his eyes and opened her lips, but she didn't say anything in the end. She had seen how Sui Ping reinforced the east. Judging from his exhaustion, it wasn't hard to imagine how many demon beasts he had killed. Sui Ping waved away their supporting hands. He still had the strength to walk on his own. Sui Ping saw Joanna in the shop and asked, "Do you have anything that can quickly restore my strength?" In order to recover himself, he either had to seek Joanna's help or sit in a nursing pen. The anima contained in the nursing pen was good to improve the pet's intelligence and power of understanding, as well as stimulate their talents. It could also help them restore their physical status. Food was not necessary when pets feasted on anima while in the nursing pens. Besides, wounds that weren't too serious would also be healed. Because of its plentiful and useful functions, the nursing pens were very expensive. However, the charges weren't exactly too high considering the usefulness of those features. The upgraded nursing pens were even more effective than before. Sui Ping could be fully reinvigorated after resting there for an hour. But, this would take an hour. While battling so intensely, he didn't even have time to heal his wounds, much less spend an hour in a nursing pen. "There are items that you want, but they aren't suitable for you," said Joanna, frowning. "Some divine fruits can restore astral powers and remove fatigue, but only those in the star state can use it. You'll probably explode if you consume them. After all, you are just a titled warrior." She sounded rather helpless. The titled rank was too low a level. Tang Ruyan and Solingyu were both shocked to hear what Joanna had said. Titled? Sui Ping was just a titled warrior? How is this possible? They were both astounded. The video feed had previously shown how Sui Ping had cut off a beast tied with a sword. And Joanna was telling them that he was only at the titled level? Sui Ping had kept on claiming that he wasn't a legendary warrior, but they only considered it a joke. After all, how could he be so strong if he weren't a legend? Which titled warrior could kill Void State Beast Kings as if they were chickens? Sua Ping had even killed Fate State enemies. Could anyone else in the titled level do that? Sua Ping's heart became heavy while they were momentarily stumped. There was nothing he could use? While he pondered whether he should use the nursing pen, the system's voice echoed in his head. However, it wasn't a hint, but the usual mockery. Aren't you stupid? You can resurrect infinitely in the cultivation sites. If you explode after eating the divine fruit, just resurrect yourself. Sua Ping was startled. Damn right. However, since he could be resurrected, he could do that immediately. Why on earth should he eat any divine fruits first? Sua Ping slapped his head, feeling that he was really being stupid. The system's voice echoed again angrily. What's the point of that? You'll be in exactly the same state as you entered the site. If you go there as tired as you are, you'll be just as lethargic after being resurrected, unless you restore yourself to your best state before your death and then resurrect yourself. Sua Ping found that the system was rather retarded. Why on earth would I kill myself if I manage to restore myself to my best state? Who knows? Maybe you'll like it. Damn. Having no time to mess with the system, Sua Ping asked, then, why am I always resurrected in my best state when I'm killed when I go to a site? Shouldn't I be in a weak state before my death after my resurrection? That's different. If you die in battle, you can be resurrected with a cost. Dying would be pointless if you kill yourself for no good reason. Sua Ping was rendered speechless. He didn't know it was that complicated. However, he had no time to think. It was already good enough that he could restore his strength. I'll go there with you. You can prepare the divine fruit first, said Sua Ping to Joanna. Joanna. Seeing the firmness in Sua Ping's eyes, she suddenly remembered his weird reviving ability. Why on earth wouldn't the guy resurrect himself here? She was puzzled. The only explanation she could think of was that he had restrictions in that place. Or maybe, is the guy simply coveting my treasures? She glared at Sua Ping when she thought of that possibility. Sua Ping. He was slightly confused but didn't bother asking due to the lack of time. He dragged Joanna into the pet room and closed the door. Neither Tang Ruin nor Sol Lingyu could open it without his permission. The sentinel stations sent emergency messages from all over and rang the alarms of the highest level. Fate State Beast Kings appeared at the front of the beast tides. 13 of them had been detected. They blatantly exposed themselves, displaying their full energy as they led the troops of the deep caves with unstoppable momentum. The sentinel stations found on the way were completely destroyed. Certain sentinels who hid themselves underground and concealed their auras with special devices were still found by the Fate State beasts and killed. The corresponding lights on the map would die out wherever the beast tides passed, making it impossible to tell what was going on. The only sources of information on the front lines were the eagles that were hiding in the clouds. Those artificial beasts were provided by Clairvoyance, the largest intelligence organization in the subcontinent district. Since they were small and lifeless, they didn't attract the Fate State Beast King's attention. Apart from them, there were also sentinel pets that had been specifically trained. Their training was of the most primitive kind. Their combat ability was mediocre and they didn't sign contracts with their masters, so they didn't carry the scent of humans. They could be mistaken for wild beasts if abandoned in the wilderness. Everything was done that way so they could be seen as allies by other wild beasts, and they could send information with the devices they carried. However, those sentinel pets were weak and likely to be killed in the wilderness. The cost to train them was also high, so their number wasn't large. The occasional pictures on the monitors were delivered by the eagles and the sentinel pets, which informed everybody about the rough scale of the beast tides. Considering the speed of their movements, the beast tide in the south will arrive first. Holding a smart tablet in his hand, an advisor said grimly, "It will arrive in 48 minutes. The beast tide in the west will be the second to arrive, in an hour and 3 minutes. The third one will arrive from the north. He reported the etas of the beast tides coming from all directions and looked at Gu Siping. At that moment, the only choice left was a final battle. The earlier blockage had been effective, especially in the north and the east where Suiping fought and annihilated several waves of powerful wild beasts. However, the foundation of the beast tide wasn't affected at all. This time, the troops of the deep caves included the wild beasts worldwide. What did the wild beasts worldwide mean? There were 10 billion wild beasts across the 5 continents on the blue planet. Apart from the low-level wild beasts that took up the majority of the population, there were still hundreds of millions of advanced wild beasts that could bring terror to humans. That was not counting the wild beasts in the sea, which were the largest in number. If the sea-living wild beasts worldwide were to surround the subcontinent district, they could even move the continent from its position. The number of the sea beasts was beyond terrifying. Fortunately for humans, only beasts of the 8th rank or higher could move on land, and their population was far smaller than the total. The downside for humans was that said population was still quite large, and each of the wild beasts was as powerful as an army. The beast tides that Suiping had stopped and killed with other legendary warriors were just a drop in the bucket compared to the total of the Deep Cave's army. Gu Siping was grim and silent for a long time. He clenched his fists, with cold sweat on his palms. His phone was close at hand. He waited for the order from the tower's HQ. All the legendary warriors had retreated behind the defense lines, along with the titled legions and the master battle pet warriors that reinforced them. After they fell back, the titled warriors returned to their respective preparation zones to treat their wounds and take a break. Some tended to their wounded pets. The rear, supervised by Wu Guansheng, was quite busy. He was quite renowned at the moment, being a rarely seen support-type legendary warrior. He had previously been unable to perform the secret healing techniques he knew. However, once he became a legendary warrior with Suiping's help, his healing expertise soared. Some of the 9th rank battle pets and titled warriors recovered in minutes thanks to him. The Beast Kings would take a longer time, but he was still fast in general. He was at least 10 times faster than other healers and specialized equipment. The Fate State enemies are here. We have to hold the defense lines with our lives on the line. After returning from the front line, Yan Yuxiu and Shui Yunzhen found Yuan Tianchen and the other legendary warriors. As everyone was facing the beast tides, they were all on the same boat, so they temporarily dropped their biases against each other. Yuan Tianchen and his group realized that the situation was worse than they had anticipated. They could hardly run to seek their own safety at this moment. The Fate State wild beasts were surrounding them from all directions, exactly to prevent any of the humans from escaping. They weren't confident of evading the detection of the Void State or the Ocean State Beast Kings, which had keen senses either. Even if they dodged the Fate State ones, they could hardly avoid the Ocean State Beast Kings that were large in number. Once exposed, they would instantly be killed in the wild. The legendary warriors gathered and looked at each other grimly. The only choice they had left was to fight. However, could they win? The odds were extremely slim. But they would die too if they didn't fight. They didn't have a choice. Their only hope was that the Tower Master wasn't bluffing earlier and really had a trump card. Planning is meaningless with everything coming to this point. Just kill as many enemies as possible. Even if we must die, we'll have the wild beasts pay a price first, declared Xiang Fengran in an aggressive and intimidating way. Ye Wuxiu nodded. Being defenders in the deep caves, they had always been prepared to sacrifice themselves. They were only anxious at the prospect of failure. Not just them, every single person on the blue planet would be killed. They were fighting not for themselves, but for everyone's lives. Let's heal ourselves first and listen to the Tower Master's arrangement later. Right, have you seen Boss Su? Shui Yunzhen looked around to ask everyone present. When Suiping was mentioned, Li Yuanfeng and Qin Dehuang also looked around too but didn't see him. Yuan Tianchen and his fellows, however, had awkward looks. They had learned how Suiping defended the north and reinforced the east. Even though they had never been on friendly terms, he had indeed made more contributions than anyone else during the crisis. He probably returned to his shop. He always loves staying in his shop when he's free, said Zhou Tianlin. He dialed a number on his phone, and the call soon went through. He said something and then hung up. Yes, he returned to his shop. Shui Yunzhen was relieved. That's great. In that case, let's disperse now and make the most of this time to heal our battle pets. Yang Yuxiu nodded and quickly left. Xiang Fengran finally remembered his wounds. He grimaced because of the pain while gasping. Without another word, he ran to find a healer. On the other side, Yuan Tianchen and his fellows also went their own way. It's already this dangerous. Shouldn't the chief be out by now? Asked a concerned Ocean State legendary warrior in a low voice. Yuan Tianchen narrowed his eyes and looked at the tower in the distance. If he doesn't come out, he'll probably have to bury us later. Next to them, an Ocean State warrior frowned in confusion. He asked, Senior Yuan, the chief trains in seclusion all the time. I'm told that the deputy chief is his student. Counting both of them, there are 3 Fate State warriors in the tower. Why didn't the tower master inform them? One of them should at least help us in moments like this. I'm told that the chief is training in seclusion to attain the star state. That being the case, his student can't also be seeking a breakthrough to the star state, right? The Ocean State warrior who asked first also looked at Yuan Tianchen, eager to know the answer. Yuan Tianchen looked at them and shook his head. Then, he said cagily, things are complicated in the tower, being the center of the global power also means that it has too many secrets. Even I am not privy to all of them. It's best not to be too nosy. In any case, they will probably come out soon. They're likely the trump cards and the hope that the tower master mentioned. The 2 legendary warriors looked at each other in a daze, but they didn't ask further, seeing how prudent Yuan Tianchen was. In fact, they were rather odd, too. If Suiping hadn't caused a fuss in the tower and forced the deputy chief to show up, they wouldn't have known that the latter who had been a counselor to the tower master was a student of the chief. The student was already at the Fate State. It wasn't hard to imagine how strong his master was. In the meantime, the south, deep in the midst of the beast tides. 3 magnificent creatures were moving among the beasts, from which all kept a distance, clearing a path for them. On the left side, a humanoid beast which had black spots all over his body and looked like a giant lizard on its feet uttered in a low voice, "We've been asked to attack him together. It seems that our lord is quite wary of that puny creature." The creature had sharp stings on its back and arms, plus a horn in the back of its head. It was extremely thick, which somehow resembled a coiling serpent. In the middle, the beast that was shrouded in a horrifying shadow rumbled, "Don't underestimate the humans. 3 of them are on the same level as us. They've enslaved creatures of our level, and they also have special battle techniques that allow them to merge with them. They have advantages in one-on-one battles." That beast had 7 giant heads that were shivering softly, each filled with sharp thorns. The lower half of its body was that of a giant dragon. It was the largest of the 3 beasts, a creature that emitted an intense bloodthirsty aura. If any human saw it, they would have recognized it to be Seven Sins, one of the 4 heavenly kings. The humanoid creature near its feet looked over and said, "I've seen the fusion technique that boosts their strength, but we're not easy to deal with either. How can those lowly creatures compare to us when it comes to battles? I've been doing nothing but fighting and killing for hundreds of years. I can't wait to find out what battle experience those humans have." 2 of the 7 Sins heads looked at it and cackled, and its other heads looked in other directions as if they were appreciating the landscapes on the way. One of the heads, which was larger than the rest and had golden horns, said casually, "They certainly can't compare to you in terms of battle experience." "Humph!" The humanoid creature snorted, seemingly satisfied with the compliment. On the other side, the last wild beast, which looked like an enormous snail, simply wriggled forward without saying anything. In the north, 3 enormous shadows were walking in the middle of a beast tide. Otherworld Heavenly King, were you defeated by humans before? Creak. You must be eager for revenge. Of the 3 beasts, the one that was entirely red and had bloodshot eyes said indifferently, back then I simply sent my clone to check whether the seal could be broken. It was beyond my expectation that I would run into that human. My clone's combat ability was just at the beginning phase of the fate state. It was only natural for it to be defeated. Creak, creak. You must have spent a lot of energy on creating a fate state clone. How painful it must be to lose it. Creak, creak. It couldn't have sounded any more sarcastic. The Otherworld Heavenly King was triggered by this and said angrily, don't blame me for attacking you if you keep at it. Creak, creak. I'll stop. People like me who can't have a clone can only envy you for having such an ability. Stop fighting. Apart from eliminating the humans, our main task is to ensure that they won't destroy the seal. It's said that a world is being imprisoned by it, and nobody knows what's inside. Any unknown factors could work against us even while we're winning this war. Humph. Creak. 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 Time ticked 1 second after the other. Behind the unified defense lines, a lot of battle pet warriors were mobilized to the south. The beast tide in the south would arrive first, and because of this the southern wall had been laden with battle resources, including RPGs, missile launchers, and some laser cannons that even the 9th rank wild beasts had to avoid. Rows of battle pet warriors stood on the high wall and stared at the horizon with solemn and nervous faces. The moment shadows emerged on the front line, it would mean war. The mildly wounded legendary warriors had already marched to the south and were waiting patiently. At the same time, at the Pixie Pet Store of the Longjiang base city, the pet room glowed, then Suaping and Joanna stepped out. Phew! Suaping quickly opened the door when he returned and was relieved to see that Solingyu and Tang Ruyan were still in the store. He immediately asked, how are the beast tides? Are they here already? Not yet. They will be here in 20 minutes, said Tang Ruyan, pouting as she watched Suaping and Joanna walking out together. Joanna glanced back at her but ignored her. Seeing that Suaping's eyes were sharp and his tiredness gone, Solingyu asked in surprise, brother, did you manage to recover? Suaping nodded. While in the demigod burial, he ate the divine fruit that Joanna offered him. He also fed the Inferno Dragon, the Dark Dragon Hound and the little skeleton too. They were all fully recovered and could fight again. Seems that I've come back just in time. Suaping was glad that he didn't miss anything. He had returned as fast as possible, but he didn't know how fast the beast tides had been marching. Stay here and don't leave the store no matter what happens, said Suaping as he strode out, then he told Joanna, help me keep an eye on them. After that, Suaping flashed out and disappeared from their sight. Tang Ruyan gnashed her teeth and turned to Joanna. What took you so long in there? How did he recover so fast? Joanna glanced at her and said indifferently, are you my boss? You. Tang Ruyan was at a loss for words. There was nothing she could do about Joanna. After all, not only was she a legendary warrior, she was also Suaping's official employee, which was better than Tang Ruyan's identity as a temporary worker. Tang Ruyan was even more frustrated. In the command room, an advisor looked at the map and spoke gravely, they will arrive in 15 minutes. The other advisors were silent. Gu Siping sensed his phone buzzing. His heart pounded, but he didn't show any excitement. He quickly picked it up. What's up? A voice came from the other side of the phone. The chief and his student are out. They're on their way. Gu Siping was stunned for a moment, before he asked, have they made a breakthrough? I don't think so, said the other voice with uncertainty. Gu Siping frowned and thought for a moment. Then, with relief on his face, he put down the phone and said to the advisors, don't panic, everybody. 2 more Fate State warriors will join us in 15 minutes. 2 more Fate State warriors. All the advisors looked at him with surprise and excitement upon hearing that. Are they on our side? Didn't you say that only you and Mr. Suaping are of the Fate State? How come? An advisor couldn't help but ask. The other people were both curious and confused. Gu Siping explained casually, those 2 people train in seclusion all the time, so I didn't consider them. I hope their cultivations are higher now that they're out. The advisors were enlightened, but they found it slightly odd too, because the Tower Master could have informed them or asked them to come out earlier if they were only training in seclusion. However, the advisors were never aware of such experts until a moment earlier. It seemed as if the 2 experts had been overlooked all the time. 2 tigers can't share one mountain. An advisor thought, and his expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. On the first wall in the southern defense line. Whoosh! Suaping appeared there with a flash, finding both Shui Yunzhen and Qin Dehuang. He instantly dashed to them and asked, how is it going? Where are the others? Healing their wounds. The beast tide will arrive in 10 minutes, it's entering the ambush area. Everybody will come when the battle begins, Shui Yunzhen replied after seeing Suaping. Qin Dehuang was rather scared to see the dried blood on Suaping's armor, whose contours and gaps had been entirely filled up by pieces of flesh and bones. It was hard to imagine how many wild beasts the man had killed. He quickly asked, Boss Su, are you all right? I'm fine. Suaping looked at them and found that they were in good shape. There wasn't enough time to let Yuxiu and the wounded heal in the nursing pens, and it wouldn't be any more effective than the treatments in the base city. While his nursing pens had great healing abilities, Yuxiu and the others had probably received the best medical resources available. Even the most rare precious resources would be used to treat them. After all, there would be no time to use the resources if they weren't used at that moment. While they were speaking, Li Yuanfeng, Xiao Mo and the others arrived. The south defense line would encounter the beast tide first, so all defenders had been summoned to that spot. The other 3 sides could only be left empty. The beast tides weren't there yet anyway. Mr. Su, we're here to help you. Boss Su, are you all right? Everybody greeted Suaping with visible concern when they saw him. Suaping had made monumental contributions, defending the north on his own and reinforcing the east. No wild beasts ever passed him. Yuxiu, Shui Yunzhen and Jing Shen had also been saved by Suaping. They would have suffered heavy casualties if not for him. 3 Fate State wild beasts are coming this way. We can only resist them by following Boss Su's commands. Exactly, we'll do whatever Boss Su asks us to do. Xiang Fengran and Yuxiu arrived at the same time. It was clear that they couldn't defend any of the sides on their own. Their number might be considerable, but there were even more Beast Kings. When dealing with Fate State Beast Kings, it would be lucky if they could escape. How could they fight them? The only tactic available was to let Suaping tear the beast tide as a sharp dagger while they helped him, just like the way the titled legions helped them earlier. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. On the other side, Yuan Tianchen and a dozen other legendary warriors joined them. Although they had conflicts with Suaping before, they knew they had to count on him at the moment. Only Suaping was able to resist the pressure of the Fate State Beast Kings, and with it giving them a chance to attack. Suaping glanced at them without saying a thing. Cooperation was what mattered most at the moment. Any grievances they had were trivial at the moment. All of a sudden, someone exclaimed, "Here they are!" After a boom, everybody saw a gigantic mushroom cloud emerge in the horizon. The explosives they had buried there had been triggered. It meant that the beast tide had arrived. Considering the speed of the beast tide, it would only take a few minutes for the beasts to approach the defenders. Suaping solemnly squinted and observed. When the mushroom cloud rose to the sky, it was soon ripped apart by something. Then, a shadow quickly expanded in the place where the cloud was and leaped to the front. It was a humanoid beast almost 80 meters tall. Covered in scales, it looked like a giant and hideous lizard. A Fate State Beast King. The eyes of Yuan Tianchen and the others contracted. They had sensed the immense pressure, even though they were a dozen kilometers away. Their poles were closing and they were sensing a natural fear. Sui Ping narrowed his eyes and observed the enemy carefully. The Fate State Beast King sprinted and soon crossed 5 kilometers, triggering a lot of traps on its way. Some traps were explosives, some had pets that could throw sharp crystal arrows with their skills. The arrows could easily penetrate 9th rank wild beasts. And yet, when the giant beast was surrounded by the exploding traps, it remained absolutely unscathed. All the battle pet warriors on the defense line gasped at the scene with fright. Sui Ping, however, wasn't surprised, as the traps were nothing but toys to a Fate State Beast King. Even the Void State wild beasts could have passed them safely. After all, the traps had been made with subpar materials. The technology available on the blue planet wasn't advanced enough to create traps able to kill Void State wild beasts, not to mention the Fate State ones. Brother Su. Mr. Su. Seeing that the traps had been triggered to no avail, Yuxiu and the others became more or less anxious. Sui Ping was quite serious. That had just been the first Fate State enemy, 2 more were on the way. It was hard for him to execute all 3 of them quickly, unless he were to use the Void Sword 3 times in a row. But he would end up drained if he did that. Joanna's divine fruit had been consumed, and he would have to recover in the nursing pens later, which would take an hour. Therefore, he had to save his physical strength in this battle. After all, everybody would probably be dead already after he came out of the nursing pen. Prepare to attack. Sui Ping took a deep breath and made a decision. A vortex was opened and the little skeleton appeared. But he didn't merge with it this time. Although the little skeleton wasn't as strong as a Fate State creature, it could hardly be killed thanks to the Skeleton King's bloodline skill. With the help of the Inferno Dragon, it could keep a Fate State wild beast occupied. Sui Ping could deal with another one on his own. Even without merging with the little skeleton, he was powerful enough to counter enemies in the beginning phase of the Fate State thanks to the training in the Golden Crow world. If he used all of his strength, he could fight with someone in the middle level of the Fate State. Yuan Tianchen and the others wore grave faces upon seeing that Sui Ping was summoning his pets, but they didn't have a choice except to grit their teeth and summon their own, ready to follow him to battle. Let's go! Sui Ping roared and ran out. When he flew out, a vortex appeared behind him, then the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound rushed out. As for the Purple Python, it was only as strong as an Ocean State Beast King, Sui Ping didn't intend to use it unless he was out of options. Roar! The Dark Dragon Hound began casting countless defense spells on the Inferno Dragon and Sui Ping the moment he appeared, although skipping the little skeleton. It had already witnessed the little skeleton's crazy survival ability and knew that it couldn't be killed. Enhanced by king-level skills, Sui Ping and the Inferno Dragon looked particularly splendid and eye-catching. Everybody was stunned, wondering how scared of death must the pet have to be to learn that many defense skills. The aura that Sui Ping and the Inferno Dragon released drew the humanoid beast's attention. It narrowed its long eyes, as if it were laughing. It even licked its face with its long tongue and charged at them. Bang! Sui Ping and the Inferno Dragon suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of the humanoid beast, which had teleported them closer. Once they appeared, a sharp blade was stabbing towards the Inferno Dragon's chest. It was the long horn behind the humanoid beast's head. Bang! 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 The defense skills protecting the Inferno Dragon exploded quickly, as if made of paper. They didn't offer any protection. However, the Inferno Dragon reacted fast enough. It had been through too many life and death battles, and it was very familiar with the Fate State Beast King's way of attacking. Whoosh! It quickly flapped its wings and dodged aside, before it unleashed a thunderous and fiery ball at the enemy's face. The humanoid beast was briefly stunned. It obviously didn't foresee that the dragon could have dodged the attack. But the humanoid beast wasn't that easy to deal with, either. It moved its long horn and aimed to stab the dragon again from a weird angle. After a bam, a sword that came out of nowhere knocked the longhorn away. Hey! The humanoid beast, infuriated, let out an ear-splitting roar that immediately broke space and covered the nearby area with powerful sound waves. Those sound waves were bounced and enhanced by the broken pieces of space until its potential damage was increased to an appalling level. Sua Ping's expression changed as it was an indiscriminate attack. He quickly roared at Yuexiu and the others behind him, "Don't come any closer!" But it was too late. After a booming sound, Sua Ping felt that his brain was trembling. The sound waves were mixed with mental attacks. He felt as if his brain were stung by needles, falling in a trance. At that moment, his training in the Golden Crow world kicked in. His soul was so tough that it recovered and nullified the excruciating pain after only a moment of dispersion. However, the physical soundwave attack he took was unbearable. The defense skills on the surface of his body had exploded instantly. In the next moment, a violent and chaotic pressure was imposed on him. All his pores were squeezed and oppressed to the limit. Sua Ping vomited a mouthful of blood as his internal organs had been hurt. "Oh no! Retreat now!" Screams came from Yuan Tianchen, Shui Yunzhen, and the other people behind Sua Ping. All the defense skills that the legendary warriors had deployed in advance were blown up. When the defense skills were shattered, other colors shined on them as the defensive secret treasures were broken. 6 of the Ocean State warriors exploded along with their flying battle pets, turning into a mist of blood, which fell to the ground with whatever was left of their bodies. Further away on the wall, many of the warriors had bleeding ears because of the ear-splitting sonic explosion. Some had even passed out. They were quite a distance away, but they were still heavily wounded. Everybody on the wall had been heavily wounded by a single strike. That was the ability of a Fate State Beast King. Upon seeing that, all the people in the command room and the base city opened their mouths, completely at a loss for words. "You're still alive!" The humanoid beast, with bulging eyes, was shocked to see Sua Ping and the dragon. "My strike didn't kill this human nor the dragon?" If caught unprepared, even another Fate State Beast King would have been blown up by the strike. What a strong body! The humanoid beast was amazed. Right when it was about to attack again, the sharpest blade aura approached its head and slashed. The humanoid beast teleported away the aura that had almost cut its face. It looked at the source of the attack, only to discover that it had been a little creature. "Is it a low-rank skeleton? Wait, it carries a strange vibe. What the heck is that?" The humanoid beast was rather shocked, as the tiny skeleton was unharmed and simply ignored its attack. Its attack had fused the power of space, sound wave, and mind. It was a great skill that the beast had invented. Why was it ineffective? The little skeleton quickly flashed to Sua Ping and stood in front of him with its saber raised high. Sonic and mental attack? It didn't have any ears. The sonic attack was destructive to living creatures because they had countless pores, organs and tissues in their bodies, which could be ripped apart by the reverberating sound waves. In comparison, the little skeleton's body was simple and hollow. Also, its bones seemed no different from those of other skeletons, but if they were observed with a magnifier, one could see the strange patterns etched on the bones. That was the Skeleton King's body. The sound waves, which carried no special power, were almost ineffective to it and also produced very few reverberations. As for the metal attack, it was even less effective. The skeletons had a naturally weak mind, however, the Skeleton King's family was different. They would fuse their minds with their bodies to avoid being controlled and enslaved by undead creatures. Only in such a way could they distinguish themselves from the common skeletons and proclaim themselves kings. The little skeleton's attack was a major contrast when seeing the screaming humans. Back in the base city, everybody was still shocked by the humanoid beast's attack when they noticed that the little skeleton had just counterattacked. Everyone was stupefied when the picture was zoomed in and they saw the little skeleton more clearly. Anyone with the least bit of knowledge about battle pets would have recognized it as a first-rank skeleton. A mere first-rank battle pet? Even the legendary warriors were screaming and moaning in that battle. How could such a low-level battle pet get a chance to fight? Soon, someone realized that something was wrong with that skeleton. How could any skeleton possibly fly? It's the white bone demon. Do you mean the one that showed up when the Tang family destroyed the Situ and the Wang families? Yes, that's the one. Is it the legendary warrior's pet? So, the Tang family is being supported by such a powerhouse. No wonder it's so domineering. Many people from the major forces recognized the skeleton in shock. They felt lucky they weren't in conflict with the Tang family. Even if they were, they would have to give in later. The advanced phase of the fate state. Sui Ping shook his head to refresh himself. He gauged the wild beast's level and was quite grim about it. That wild beast was so strong that the Inferno Dragon had only survived because of luck, and because the enemy had underestimated it and chose not to use its ultimate skill. However, it had already caused massive destruction without the ultimate skill. Sui Ping quickly looked around and changed his expression when he saw that Ye Wuxiu, Shui Yunzhen and the others were vomiting blood, while also having suffered heavy wounds. They couldn't possibly help him, and would very likely die if the enemy repeated the previous attack. Fall back now, don't follow me, said Sui Ping. They would only be part of the collateral damages in a fate state battle. Ye Wuxiu, Qin Duhuang and the others were all shocked and reluctant. They were shocked after seeing that the fate state wild beasts were far more horrifying than they thought, and reluctant since they could only retreat and observe the battle like the civilians. Although reluctant, all of them retreated at a swift pace, as they would only drag Sui Ping down if they stayed. Boom! At that moment, an overwhelming beast tide was already advancing, taking the path where the humanoid beast had just cleared the traps. However, the beast tide was quite widespread. The beasts on both flanks entered the defensive area and got killed by various sorts of traps. Roar! After a loud dragon roar, dozens of enormous shadows rushed from the rear of the beast tide. They were all beast kings. Dozens of beast kings running at the same time was quite a splendid and devastating sight. Everybody held their breath when they saw that scene. They had never seen such a spectacular view before. Not even the movies could ever have such magnificent effects. Boy, what are you looking at? A creepy voice was heard, then the humanoid beast licked the sticky saliva on its cheeks and cackled. Your body is tough, and I sense that another power is hidden inside your body. There's also a delicious and tantalizing vibe in you. You must taste very good, don't you? Sui Ping quickly calmed down upon seeing the blatant gluttony in its eyes. He had many other things to worry about. He had to finish off that fate state beast king first. Is that so? You look quite hideous, you must be awful to eat. Sui Ping wiped the blood on his lips and sneered. Then, he sent a telepathic message to the Inferno Dragon, asking it to retreat and leave the battle to him. The Inferno Dragon could no longer help him with that battle anymore. It might even be accidentally killed. Who told you you can leave? The humanoid beast rolled its eyes and waved its claws when the Inferno Dragon moved. The space was instantly torn apart, and the cracks were spread to reach the Inferno Dragon. The Inferno Dragon roared, the space around it was locked, and it couldn't flash into the distance. It also sensed that the killing intent had been aimed at it. Massive lightning and fire energies surged out and crashed against the cracks. After a booming sound, the energy composed by lightning and fire exploded, but it failed to prevent the cracks from spreading. Sui Ping's eyes turned cold. He was about to take action, when the cracks suddenly stopped as if blocked by something. Then, a gentle vibe suddenly arrived. The advanced phase of the fate state? It must have been difficult for you, said a warm voice. It belonged to a white-haired middle-aged man in a white robe who walked out of the void and emerged in front of Sui Ping. The middle-aged man was followed by another person who was approximately the same age. His hair was also white, but he wore black clothes and had a more serious look. Sui Ping was stunned for a moment by their sudden appearance, then remembered who they were. Those two people had shown up when he went and executed legendary warriors at the tower. One of them was the deputy chief, and the other was the chief. Both of them were at the fate state, the chief had even reached the peak of the rank. What took you so long? Su Ping was slightly relieved. But then he became angry and remembered Gu Siping. So he asked, if you're the chief, why is Gu Siping the tower master? I'm the second generation master, while he's the third generation. Ji Yuanfeng, white clothes and white hair, smiled casually. Brother Gu is the first generation tower master's student. The first tower master was heavily wounded and had to retire. He was too weak to work as the chief, so I had to replace him. I was never interested in the job. So, I stepped down and handed the position to Brother Gu when he reached the fate state. I was afraid that Brother Gu wasn't familiar with his responsibilities, so I asked my student to help him. Su Ping was dazed for a moment. He looked at the deputy chief, who went back on his promise when Su Ping demanded the soul-nurturing grasses from the tower. Your student is turning out to be almost as unscrupulous as Gu Siping. Su Ping laughed with obvious derision. You! The deputy chief burst into fury when he heard that. Ji Yuanfeng looked at him, which vaporized the deputy chief's fury and made him lower his head. You said that the first generation tower master was heavily wounded and retired. Is he still alive? Asked Su Ping. If he indeed was still alive, they would have another strong ally who would most likely be at the peak of the fate state. Ji Yuanfeng shook his head and replied, I'm not sure. Brother Gu is probably the only person who knows the answer. Roar. Right before he could finish, a furious roar from the humanoid beast was heard. The beast was outraged. These humans are chit-chatting? Do they think I don't exist? Oh, I almost forgot about you. Ji Yuanfeng heard the roar and remarked, which made the humanoid beast roll its eyes in fury. It opened its mouth to let out another shriek. Oh crap! Su Ping's expression changed in a flash. It was another widespread sonic attack. This time the energy released by the beast would be even more massive than the last time. Now! When the humanoid beast was about to roar, Ji Yuanfeng waved his hands, and the creature seemed nauseated, as if it had swallowed a fly. Its throat had been blocked by a spatial wall. Xiao Yat, come out, said Ji Yuanfeng softly. A giant vortex almost 100 meters in diameter appeared next to him, and a horrifying aura was spreading out. Su Ping was stunned to find that it was a peak fate state wild beast. Caw! A sharp caw resounded, and then a black bird that looked like a giant falcon dashed out. The bird's feathers were entirely black without any exception. The moment it came out, it swooped down on the humanoid beast and locked down the space around it. The humanoid beast roared in fear and raised the sharp thorns all over its body like a provoked lizard. Once the giant falcon arrived, it directly jumped and waved its claws at the enemy. The black falcon's iron claws dug deeply into the humanoid beast's shoulder, but the latter also took the chance to stab with the long horn behind its head at one of the falcon's claws, making it bleed. Su Ping shook his head upon seeing that. That black falcon had a high level, but had limited battle experience. It seemed that the chief had never bothered to properly groom his battle pet, at all. However, it was hard to groom peak fate state battle pets on the blue planet. After all, even opponents of the same level were rare, unless we considered the deep caves. However, there were too many fate state enemies in the deep caves, and they might attack invaders collectively. After seeing the wound on his pet, Ji Yuanfeng slightly changed his expression and cast a few astral spells. The black falcon became significantly stronger instantly, tearing a large piece of flesh off the humanoid beast's shoulder, just before it pecked the enemy's head. The humanoid beast shrieked in fright. Several streaks of light emanated from its head, which were manifestations of its defensive skill. Right after the defense skill activation, another radiating light burst out and dazzled everybody. Su Ping narrowed his eyes and sent out a telepathic thought when the radiating light burst out. Whoosh! The light was gone. Ji Yuanfeng opened his eyes and still felt that they were stinging. The deputy chief also opened his eyes, which were bloodshot at the moment. He hadn't closed his eyes fast enough and his eyes were hurting. They were both surprised to see what was right before their eyes. The humanoid beast was dead. Its head had been grabbed in a tiny hand that had nothing but bones. The little skeleton returned with the humanoid beast's head and delivered it to Suaping. Suaping was amused by the gesture. He said, "Drop it now. I don't want anything this hideous. It's not fit for me." The little skeleton was stunned for a moment. Then, it obediently threw off the head, which fell on the ground below the cliff, causing a massive pit. Far in the distance, the black falcon was still clenching the humanoid beast's headless body, with blood flowing out of its eyes. It stared at the little skeleton, obviously not expecting that the tiny creature would steal its prey. Suaping smiled. The little skeleton didn't have biological eyes, it saw things with the nether flames in its eye sockets, which could detect the aura and heat of other creatures. The humanoid beast's escape technique didn't work on the little skeleton. The little skeleton's bone dagger, on the other hand, was the piece of a fang it had picked up from the chaotic realm of the undead. It was quite sharp, and it seemed to be imbued with certain laws. So far, there was nothing that it couldn't cut apart. Of course, the items in his shop were the exception. Those items belonged to the system and couldn't be destroyed. "Your battle pet?" Ji Yuanfeng glanced at the little skeleton and the dagger on its hip. Then, he moved his eyes away with a bitter smile. "Sorry for stealing your kill. No need to apologize. By the way, what's your current level?" asked Ji Yuanfeng curiously. Last time he saw Suaping, he felt that the latter was only at the 7th rank. Of course he didn't believe that. He would rather eat his own shoes than believe that. This time, when he met Suaping again, he found that the young man had set his level to appear as being at the peak of the 9th rank. He was unable to see through Suaping's disguise. The guy was truly sophisticated. "Can't you see? The 9th rank." Suaping looked at him weirdly. He wasn't hiding anything. "Is the guy blind?" Ji Yuanfeng, hee. He would be damned if he believed what the mischievous young man said. "Never mind. Let's take care of the beast tides and talk later." Ji Yuanfeng looked at the marching army of the deep caves with cold eyes. "I'll handle the fate state ones, you two take care of the other beast kings. Are you fine with this?" The deputy chief replied respectfully, "Yes." Suaping waved his hands. "Don't get too exhausted." Ji Yuanfeng dashed out towards the two fate state wild beasts in the midst of the tide. Upon seeing that, the black falcon released the lifeless body and glared at the little skeleton before it flew to position itself behind Ji Yuanfeng. "Let's go, deputy chief." Suaping chuckled. The deputy chief raised his eyebrows. He found Suaping's tone rather uncomfortable. After snorting, he summoned his battle pets and charged. Very soon, powerful auras and shadows emerged in the sky. The deputy chief turned out to have two fate state battle pets. However, they were both in the early phase of the fate state. The other battle pets were all in the advanced phase of the void state. Some were dragons and some were demons, all of them came from tough races. Ji Yuanfeng, however, didn't summon more battle pets, simply merging with the black falcon. 4 black wings extended from his white robe, making him look like a fallen angel. As he watched them go forward, Suaping wasted no time merging with the little skeleton, then he commanded the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound to join the battle. The people in the base cities behind the defense lines were all excited and shocked. Who are they? They're so strong. The beast that was showing off earlier was killed in the blink of an eye. So strong. Are they the top legendary warriors? There's hope for us. All the civilians and the major forces were too shocked to talk. They had seen Suaping's horrifying combat ability when he reinforced the east and cut apart a beast tide. However, the two experts who had just arrived seemed to be even stronger than him. There really was hope. Back in the command room, Gu Siping narrowed his eyes when he saw Ji Yuanfeng on the screen. Coldness flashed in his eyes, but then he wore a big smile. Now that they're here, the trouble in the south will be resolved in no time. Gu Saiping chuckled. The advisors took a long breath of relief after seeing the smile on his face. They felt as if the clouds above their heads were thinner, and a hint of sunlight could be seen on the wall protecting the periphery. Yan Yuxiu and the others were excited to see Ji Yuanfeng. Some of the ocean state legends, however, asked in confusion, "Who's the man next to the deputy chief?" Seeing that it had been Xiao Mo who asked the question, Yan Yuxiu smiled and said, "He's the second-generation chief of the tower, and the deputy chief's master. He trains in seclusion all the time, so it's natural that you don't know him." I had not heard anything about him in a long time, which had made me think that something had happened to him. I didn't know that he was still alive after so many years. Yes, so many years have passed. Jing Shen felt the same. He had only met the chief once when he first went to the tower. If he had missed the chance, he wouldn't have known anything about the chief. "Let's go and kill them all!" Shui Yunzhen roared and charged along with her battle pets. The others looked at each other and laughed. All of them followed her. "Shui the tigress is still the toughest one. That's bullsh*t. How can she compare to me? Ha ha ha. This is why you're still single. You'll never find a girl willing to marry you. Get lost." They laughed and teased each other as they moved toward the beast tide. On the other hand, the Void State warriors headed by Yuan Tianchen looked at each other in bewilderment, wondering why those lunatics didn't focus on healing first. "Stop gawking. Let's join the battle," a Void State old man said and rushed forward without caring about the others. Yuan Tianchen took a deep breath and said, "Go." They marched out again, straight towards the beast tide. Having 3 protectors leading the vanguard would allow them to take care of the lower-tiered wild beasts without worries. In the depths of the beast tide, the 7 heads of 7 sins which stood in the middle of the breathtaking beasts craned and saw what was going on. One of the heads shrieked, "It's the Ji guy! The Ji guy!" Another head roared, "Stop making noises!" Another head said gloomily, "Let's report this to the Lord. The Ji guy isn't easy to deal with. He fought an evenly matched battle against the Heavenly King of Good and Evil years ago. I'm no match for him." "Just get the hell out of here, coward," snapped one of the heads. "Who says I'm no match for him? I can blow him up," cried another head. "All of you, shut up," the head with golden horns roared, immediately silencing the other heads. It then looked at the beast king that looked like a giant snail and said, "Inform the Lord about the situation and ask him to send reinforcements. We can only delay him for 15 minutes at best." The giant snail slowly turned its head and looked at 7 sins, before it said, "I already informed the Lord when the idiot jumped out. Can you make your other heads shut up? I'm having a headache because of all the noise." "What did you say, you smelly bug?" demanded one of the heads in rage. "All of our heads belong together. If you tell us to shut up, you're telling 7 sins to shut up." "Are you done living?" said another head sarcastically. "You want me to shut up? I'm going to blow you up," roared another head. "I'll blow you up, blow you up. I feel sorry for you," repeated a different head. The head with golden horns roared, "All of you, shut up." All the heads stopped talking and craned their necks to look for enemies. Suddenly, one of the heads said in a low voice, "He's here." In the next moment, the surrounding space trembled, and the ground collapsed deeply. Several tornadoes descended from high in the sky like spears. Bang! 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 2 of 7 sins heads spewed ice and fire. An explosion was caused when the 2 kinds of energies were mixed, tearing apart those tornadoes. Ji Yuanfeng emerged in the middle of that chaotic energy. He flapped his wings as he looked down at the 2 wild beasts on the ground. 7 sins, it's been a long time. Ji Yuanfeng's face was extremely cold. There were black feathers on his cheeks. Humph! 7 sins snorted and took action. The wild beast which looked like a giant snail slowly looked at its partner and heaved a sigh. The next moment, it suddenly rose and stood on its feet. It became taller and taller, until it knocked away the shell on its back. There were 4 limbs underneath the shell and the beast looked like a frog. Nearby, one of Seven Sins' heads which loved repeating exclaimed in shock. Wow! Wow! This shell doesn't belong to it. It's so hideous. I can blow it up, another head shouted. Coward! You live in someone else's shell. I feel sorry for you, said another head in disdain. The wild beast that had just took off the snail's shell ignored them. It simply held the shell it took off and filled the carapace with energy, which suddenly unraveled according to its patterns, transforming into a giant ruler. That giant ruler was 100 meters long and a dozen meters wide, with obvious degree scales. Finish him! While holding the giant ruler, the wild beast snarled and leaped up with a much higher speed, launching an attack at Ji Yuanfeng who was currently floating in midair. It's better to be more cautious. I think we should stand by and observe the battle first. Shut up, you're so annoying. That Ji guy is getting more and more handsome. My mouth is drooling. The 7 heads of 7 sins were all exclaiming, and the golden one with horns in the center roared, all of you, shut up. Don't you see how dangerous it is? We would have defeated the heavenly king of good and evil if you were more obedient. Why, we could have even reached a higher level. The rest of the heads fell silent, not daring to utter another syllable. Finish him! The head with horns roared and turned the rocks on the ground into multiple gigantic hands that aimed to grab Ji Yuanfeng in the sky. On the other hand, Sui Ping had been caught in the beast tide with the little skeleton, the inferno dragon and the others. He released all kinds of skills while choosing not to merge with the little skeleton, as there were too many beasts, it would be quicker if they killed them while fighting as individuals. Also, the fate state enemies in the beast tide were busy dealing with Ji Yuanfeng, so Sui Ping didn't need to worry about a possible ambush. He didn't rely on the little skeleton's protection anymore. Bang! 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 Sui Ping dashed amidst the beasts with blood splashing out, causing tremendous casualties. Not too far from them, the deputy chief was also on a rampage with his battle pets going after the wild beasts. Yan Yuxiu and the other legendary warriors were right behind him. Together, they managed to block and even crush the magnificent beast tide. All the wild beasts were fleeing and bleeding. The massacre made everybody behind the defense lines feel excited. As time went by, more and more corpses were left in the beast tide, which was cut apart into multiple sections. Some beasts were already running away. Those at the command center knew that the south had been secured. If the wild beasts fighting in the south were all there was, that would mean that they were winning the battle. However, more beast tides were about to arrive in the other 3 directions. When the situation in the south was stabilized, they quickly shifted their attention to the north and the east, where beasts as plentiful as those in the south were approaching. What do we do? The beast tide in the north is about to arrive. There are 3 fate state wild beasts in it. It's impossible to send the other legendary warriors to suppress them. The advisor's mood quickly changed, as their hard-earned hope from the south was being destroyed by reality. Based on the battle against the humanoid beast, they were able to ascertain that common legendary warriors were no different from the titled warriors in front of a fate state beast king. The fate state enemies had to be finished by fate state warriors. However, there were only 4 fate state legendary warriors on the human side. So, each of them had to defend one direction. Even Gu Siping had to take action. I'll take care of the north. Give the east side to Brother Su, and the west side to the deputy chief, a solemn Gu Siping said while sitting on his chair with arms crossed. The advisors looked at them but didn't say anything. They knew that they didn't have a choice. There were no more fate state legendary warriors. Wait, the wild beasts in the north seem to have stopped. Hey? So have those in the east. Those in the west did the same. Suddenly, the advisors noticed something was off. The beast tides in the other direction stopped and didn't press further. Ask the sentinels to send videos. Don't forget the east side. The advisors quickly gave commands. Soon, a few video clips were delivered to them and were opened, one by one. The videos were shot by the monitoring eagles. Others were shot from the sentinel stations on the ground. It could be seen that a swarm of beasts stopped in front of the cameras and stopped moving, as if taking a rest. Not just the north, the east, and the west sides were the same. The beast tides in all three directions had halted when they were only 10 minutes away from the defense lines. They would enter the ambush area in another 5 minutes. What's going on? What are they waiting for? Have they learned about the south? No, they would have been attacking more fervently if that were the case. An advisor was surprised and suspicious. Weren't the beasts acting as onlookers if they stopped? If they charged immediately, they would ease the pressure on the beasts in the south and give them a chance to catch their breath. Still, they surprisingly decided to stop. Was there any kind of conflict among those beasts? Everybody was surprised, not knowing what the beasts were doing. Goosiping was as perplexed as everybody else, but he had a strange sense of foreboding. Send someone to look for the beast kings leading the beast tides, ordered Goosiping. The advisors became frightened when they realized what Goosiping meant. If the beast kings in all the beast tides went and reinforced the south would become the most horrifying point at this moment. Send the titled warriors there. They must figure out where the beast kings are even if they have to sacrifice themselves, shouted an advisor while he contacted the soldiers. While an urgent investigation was conducted, Suiping and the others who were fighting the beast tide in the south heard a roar. Then, they saw that something was thrown back from the sky close to the beast tide's rear, leaving a ravine almost 100 meters long. Suiping was quite shocked to find that such a thing turned out to be Ji Yuanfeng. Ji Yuanfeng looked quite awful at the moment. His wings had lost most of their feathers and his white robe was torn apart, revealing the glittering armor underneath. Sir! On the other side, a wide-eyed deputy chief also saw this happen. Ji Yuanfeng, who was omnipotent in his eyes, was defeated? They had reinforcements. Ji Yuanfeng rose to his feet. He looked at Suiping and the deputy chief, with no more casualness, only determination remained on his face. Suiping was about to talk, when he sensed something and narrowed his eyes. Boom! 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 All the mediocre beasts at the rear stopped fleeing and kneeled in fright. Even the 9th rank wild beasts that lived in the corridor also ducked their heads and lowered their bodies, too scared to move. Intense noises echoed, so loudly that the people behind the defense lines could hear them. The water in the cups on the desk was rippling. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. Not too far off, the deputy chief's eyes were widened with shock. He mumbled until he couldn't say anything else. Altogether 10 enemies with a fate state air were approaching them. The number was more than 3 times larger than that of the fate state wild beasts they had detected earlier. Suiping was just as stunned. He knew that every beast tide in the other directions was led by 2 or 3 fate state wild beasts. Are all of them here? There are 3 peak fate state wild beasts, and an old fried. Ji Yuanfeng took a straight and solemn stance, since the old friend alone gave him great pressure. That old friend was the heavenly king of good and evil, the leader of the 4 heavenly kings whom he had fought and couldn't defeat. Ji Yuanfeng, you've been training too slowly. A weird voice rumbled throughout the battlefield. The voice was weird because it sounded genderless and ageless. It seemed that every syllable was transforming into the voices of different ages and genders. Ji Yuanfeng gloomily replied, "Come and figure out if I'm too slow. That is, if you dare. I will, after I stomp on you. It was a shame that I didn't eat you earlier. I can finally enjoy myself today." The weird voice was erratic and indifferent. Ji Yuanfeng was grimly silent. He wouldn't have been on edge if the heavenly king of good and evil had shown up on its own. However, the enemy was being supported by 2 peak fate state allies, whereas he only had Suiping and his disciple. To make matters worse, there were 7 fate state enemies apart from those 3. 7 Since who was in the advanced phase of the Fate State was among the 7 Fate State enemies. Is the Ocean Sovereign here? Asked Suaping with a casual tone, while he looked at the gigantic wild beasts that were getting closer. He had heard that the Ocean Sovereign who ruled over the wild beasts in all the oceans was even more horrifying than the Heavenly King of Good and Evil. He was at the border of the Fate State, inching ever closer to the Star State. Ji Yuanfeng's pupils were slightly contracted, before he slowly replied a few seconds later, no. Suaping's expression changed a bit. The enemy's roster was horrifying enough as it was, and the Ocean Sovereign was not even among them. He picked up his phone and quickly contacted Gu Siping. Did the Beast Kings from the other directions gather here? After a brief silence, Gu Siping finally replied, not yet. His voice was quavering. This time, Gu Siping was truly panicked. According to an urgent investigation, the Fate State Beast Kings in the other directions were still there. It meant that the Fate State Beast Kings in the south were all the wild beasts that had never shown up from the Deep Caves army. The Ocean Sovereign, the Overlord of the Seas, was still lurking in the dark, too. How overwhelming were their enemies? 20 Beast Kings had already appeared, which was beyond Gu Siping's calculations. Since the Ocean Sovereign was still hiding, he had no doubt that more Beast Kings had yet to be revealed. It was more than what Gu Siping could take. Pa! The phone was hung up. Suaping took a deep breath. He had seen this coming. He had seen 8 Fate State wild beasts on his last visit to the corridor, even though it was already empty. There was no telling if those 8 Fate State wild beasts had gotten out. If they didn't, Suaping was still unsure about whether to feel lucky or sad. We have to fight, said Suaping gravely. Both Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were slightly surprised by Suaping's resolve. They didn't expect him to be as determined to fight when faced with that many enemies. They had heard Suaping and Gu Siping's communication. The situation was truly devastating. There were too many Fate State wild beasts from the deep caves and the ocean. They were reminded again of how human beings had been struggling to survive on the blue planet for 1,000 years. Humans had built up one base city after another and commissioned settlers to explore the wilderness and hunt wild beasts. They weren't the masters of that continent, only the survivors. They had persisted that long because of the Ocean Sovereign's non-invasion pact with the first-generation Tower Master, and because the 4 Heavenly Kings often fought each other and rarely attacked humans. After all, humans weren't exactly more appetizing than other wild beasts, and it wasn't easy to eat them. At that moment, the wild beasts from the ocean and the deep caves that had grown and multiplied in 1,000 years were merged. Their joint beast tide would drown the entire blue planet. Human beings were like a tiny boat on the tide. Even the smallest wave could shatter it into pieces. Suaping heard something and turned his head, only to find that the deputy chief was shaking. A Fate State expert was trembling with fear. Suaping was quite serious, but at the moment he didn't despise the man he had always loathed, because he would have felt desperate too in such a situation if he didn't have a system store to rely on. It was all thanks to the system. He wasn't devastated yet, and he was still able to think clearly. Actually, there was very little he could think about. Any trick was futile in front of absolute strength. The only thing he could do was to fight. They are all. How is it possible? Are all the Fate State enemies from the other directions here? Far in the distance, Yuexiu and the others who were fighting in the beast tide looked at the Fate State wild beasts, which were as massive as mountains. They became more and more desperate as the wild beasts got closer. Even veterans like Yuexiu were stupefied. They had heard the number of Beast Kings detected, but seeing that many of them gathering with their very own eyes was much more shocking. Whoosh! A man rushed closer from a distance. He wore a golden armor and held a long spear. He was none other than Gu Siping. With everything coming to that point, he could no longer stay in the command center. So many Fate State enemies had shown up. If he didn't get out to fight, it would be impossible for Suaping and Ji Yuanfeng to resist their attacks. If either of them was killed, the other would have to endure a much greater pressure. If everyone fell, the entire defense line would easily be shattered by the Fate State enemies. Given such a scenario, the only surviving fish behind it would be Goosiping, who would soon end up in pieces, too. Therefore, he had to run immediately or fight. After considering the pros and cons, he chose the latter. After all, he didn't know where he could run to, and he intended to fight for a while longer. Maybe there would be a miracle. Hey! Suaping was slightly surprised to see Goosiping. He couldn't help but respect the man for choosing not to run away from such a great danger. Ji Yuanfeng looked at him and said in a low voice, "Leave the heavenly king of good and evil to me. Of the other two peak enemies, take care of one of them and I'll deal with the other one." Several vortexes appeared on his back as he talked, and a horrifying air was spread out. 4 Fate State battle pets, all in the advanced phase, walked out in sequence. They were Ji Yuanfeng's trump cards. Goosiping was slightly shocked to see the Fate State battle pets. Then, he forced himself to act normal and nod. "No problem. You two have to take care of the other Fate State enemies. Just keep them occupied." Ji Yuanfeng looked at Suaping and his disciple with worry. After all, the 7 Fate State wild beasts weren't easy to deal with, and it was too hard for Suaping and his disciple to hold them back. However, with everything coming to that point, Ji Yuanfeng didn't have a choice. After all, he was no longer able to help them. The deputy chief's expression changed subtly and he opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. He didn't have a choice in such a situation, and there were no options. He had to either run, or fight. He lowered his head in silence with flashing eyes. Suaping, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, "You can take care of the other 7. Leave these 3 to me." All his companions were stumped by what he said. Suaping raised his head with determination. He didn't explain anything as he simply sent a telepathic thought. Immediately after, a streak of light came from the distance and entered his body. Cracking noises echoed, and the heavy, awe-inspiring vibe of a king emanated from Suaping. White bones grew and covered his body, even his cheeks. He became much taller than before, and he emitted a grim aura of violence. Ji Yuanfeng was quite shocked after sensing the energy waves radiated by Suaping. But weirdly enough, the astral power that Suaping released was intimidating even to him. It was so abundant that it felt like a boundless ocean. Coming back to his senses, Ji Yuanfeng quickly said, "Brother Su, don't be too proud. Since you're so capable when it comes to fighting, each of us will take care of one of the top 3 Fate State enemies." "That won't be necessary. You must kill the other Fate State enemies as soon as possible. Speed is what matters. Don't forget that the beast tides on the other flanks are awaiting us," said Suaping coldly and assertively like a king would. His eyes, as dark as a bottomless abyss, were filled with the cold air of destruction, which made Ji Yuanfeng feel somewhat odd, so he stopped persuading him. Yes, he felt awed by Suaping. It wasn't the surging energy from Suaping that awed him, it was the strange air mixed in that energy. It seemed to be from an ancient life on a more advanced level, which frightened on a cellular level. While he was in a trance, Suaping had already roared and taken to the sky. He stomped on the air, and a terrifying thunder echoed throughout the void. "Hey! What's going on? He's so strong. He's not at the Fate State, is he?" All the Fate State Beast Kings that emerged from the Beast Tide were shocked. Even though Suaping was small, they couldn't neglect him. His energy was so scorching, and yet his vibe wasn't on the same level as theirs, which was rather weird. "This snack is interesting. He's mine." One of the peak Fate State wild beasts walked forward, making the ground rumble under his feet. The wild beast looked like a rhino, only dozens of times bigger. It had pointed fangs in its mouth and white, short horns all over its body. Its overall image made it look sturdy. It peered down at Suaping as if it were looking at a piece of delicious cake. Then, it raised its forelegs and stomped. After several explosions, dragons made of rocks darted from the ground up and went after Suaping in midair. The space around Suaping was completely locked, making it impossible for him to run. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The raging wind that came at Suaping's face made his hair dance. The blowing sand and stones were hitting Suaping's face. He suddenly opened his eyes, with brilliant spots of light beaming out. In the next moment, the sword in his hands unleashed a dazzling black light that swallowed all the rays on the battleground. Go to hell! The demonic power and the laws of annihilation were triggered as the countless star vortices in Suaping's cells exploded. They were all compressed in his sword. All of a sudden, the ultimate air of destruction was spread out. The void sword slashed forward. Oh no! Hey! The brutal rhino that had just launched an attack suddenly felt a horrifying aura. Its relaxed expression was quickly replaced by shock and fury. The other two peak Fate State Beast Kings behind it were also stunned. They looked at Suaping in shock. Bang! 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 Walls rose one after another in front of the rhino. The rocks which made the walls were quickly crystallized, increasing their defense. The beast opened its mouth and spewed a black, spinning shield during the crystallization process. The shield was only about 3 meters in diameter and protected the center of its eyebrows, which was where its soul lay. Suaping slashed with his sword the moment the black shield appeared. The clouds in the sky were split up, as if instructed to do so. His sword cut the air, the ground, and space apart. A terrifying black crack appeared. The space which could have only been ripped apart by void state beings with their understanding of space was brutally torn. Boom! 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 The dozen crystallized walls in front of the rhino were destroyed as if they were paper, even though each of them could have resisted the bombardments of a void state expert for hours. Squeak! After an ear-splitting explosion, something seemed to have been torn apart. The high-pitched sound waves were spread throughout the battlefield. Many mediocre wild beasts near the rhino bled and died. The enormous battlefield was caught in a weird moment of silence when the aftershock died down. Even the unbridled beasts had stopped roaring and grunting. Boom! As if a century had passed even though it was actually only several seconds of silence, another loud noise resounded. Then, to everybody's shock, the magnificent rhino collapsed. It was also falling while split into two halves, right from the middle. Its blood and guts were flowing everywhere. Undigested remains of wild beasts could be seen inside some of the organs. Well! Ji Yuanfeng, Gu Saiping, and the others were so astounded by what they were seeing that their eyes were on the verge of bursting. The man had killed a peak Fate State enemy with one attack. They felt that everything had been an illusion, or maybe a dream. The people at the base were just as stupefied. Suaping's attack had been too powerful. It silenced the entire battlefield and executed one of the wild beasts' leaders at the same time. Incredible! The black shield had already cracked, it fell next to the rhino's body. The formation it had inscribed had also been broken. The ear-splitting noise earlier had been caused when it tried to resist Suaping's attack, until it failed and was eventually crushed. All the Beast Kings were dazed while they stood behind the body. The Fate State Beast Kings which had roamed casually to the front line were getting chills. They looked at the small young man as if he were a monster. That had been a bloodthirsty giant rhino, an overlord at the peak of the Fate State. And yet, it had been slain by him with one attack? Only one attack. An instant kill. Has this young man transcended his level? In a place nearby, the Heavenly King of Good and Evil and the other peak Fate State wild beasts were too shocked to believe it. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil was the most shocked. It knew that Ji Yuanfeng was the strongest human and quite tricky to deal with in fact. Little did it expect to see someone who was even more horrifying than Ji Yuanfeng. That guy could easily be compared with the Ocean Emperor. No, he was even more horrifying than the Ocean Emperor. Who? Suaping breathed heavily and soon caught his breath. He looked at the Heavenly King of Good and Evil with appalling coldness beaming out of his eyes, that was the strongest of the three peak fate state enemies. The heavenly king of good and evil was a dragon covered in black and white scales. It had two heads, its scales weren't mixed together, since they were used on two different sides of its body, as if having been combined from two dragons. It looked quite uncoordinated, if not hideous. Suo Ping had heard a lot about the heavenly king of good and evil. He did feel a horrifying vibe after he finally saw it. The heavenly king of good and evil was a peak fate state dragon, with the vibe of the undead. Considering the azure blood in his body, Suo Ping had developed keen senses for all things from the undead. He was able to tell that the heavenly king was a mixture of a dragon and a demon, both of which were very strong races. No wonder it could be the leader of the four kings. You're next. Suo Ping approached the heavenly king of good and evil in the air while holding his sword. He seemed to be challenging all the fate state wild beasts on the battlefield with nothing but his sword. The scene was so shocking that too many people in the base cities were at a loss for words. His straight and lonely back looked like an indestructible wall. In a certain civilian house in the Longjiang base city, a woman suddenly covered her mouth and couldn't stop crying. She was Li Qinggru, Suo Ping's mother. Recently, Suo Ping hadn't been home much, but the news of what he had done outside and the change in attitude of the five families, including the Qin family, made her realize that her son was no longer what he used to be. Still, his son was fighting on a battlefield completely on his own. Which mother could bear watching her son fight that hard? Su Yuanshan held her in his arms and comforted her, while he watched the TV with a complicated expression. In another base, inside a lofty manor, many titled warriors and young elites of the Tang family were gathered. To think we once tried to make trouble for him. They were completely stunned as they saw the video feed on the screen. Tang Linzhen, who stood in the middle, slightly opened his mouth but didn't know how to reply to Tang Yuanking's remark. Standing nearby, Tang Ruya was greatly shocked. She remembered that she had first met Suo Ping during the Supremacy League. Back then, she never expected that the young man could grow to such a horrifying degree. At the same time, everybody at the Trainers Association, which had relocated behind the defense lines, was too shocked to talk. Suo Ping had visited the Trainers Association earlier and was eventually certified as a top trainer. However, nobody knew that he was also a legendary warrior, and a top one at that. On the battlefield, Suo Ping quickly approached the heavenly king of good and evil. He was releasing such a strong killing intent that the latter's eyelids twitched. It couldn't help but lean back and feel the urge to run. However, it knew the consequences of defection, which made it hold back the urge. "Let's attack him together," the heavenly king of good and evil roared furiously. He had no time to care about his dignity anymore. Duel? Only an idiot would duel with him. Yes, the guy who challenged him first and got killed was an idiot. They outnumbered him. Why on earth would they fight a one-on-one battle? When the heavenly king of good and evil roared, the other fate state wild beasts realized that the man was their greatest foe and they had to take him down as a team. Nearby, a peak fate state beast king which looked like a sea dragon bellowed, "Finish him!" It was a gargantuan beast with the body of a whale, the head of a crocodile, and the limbs of a lizard. It opened its mouth and spouted a mouthful of black water. The black water was smelly and covered up Suo Ping like a web the moment it appeared, corrupting and twisting the space around him. The other fate state beast kings also released their skills in haste. The horrifying killing techniques of the fate state level reduced the energy in the area into a chaotic surge. Close to 8 dreadful skills appeared in the sky at the same time, making it look like the arrival of the apocalypse. Any of those skills would have caused a huge opening on the defense line if it happened to land a hit. Seeing that the Fate State Beast Kings had joined forces to attack Suo Ping, Ji Yuanfeng was refreshed by the violent energy and changed his expression. If anything happened to Suo Ping, it would be impossible for them to stop the Beast Kings on their own. "Let's help!" Ji Yuanfeng roared and charged while in a merged state. He unleashed several tornadoes towards those skills in the sky, hoping to detonate them in advance. Those skills were all made of energy, their energy structures could be destroyed if they suffered huge impacts, that would cause an early detonation. Freeze! The Heavenly King of Good and Evil roared when Ji Yuanfeng took action. The tornadoes that the latter released were frozen on the spot, unable to move forward anymore. It was quite a shocking and unimaginable scene, witnessing how those tornadoes came to a complete stop. Both Gu Siping and the deputy chief were in bad shape. They quickly took action and merged with their battle pets, releasing a powerful vibe. The deputy chief turned his hands upside down and took out a sword before he launched the God Devourer, which he had used in the battle against Suiping in the tower. Golden dragon scales appeared on his body, he was then filled with the gravitas of a dragon. Shadows were moving in his force field right behind him, as if splendid gods were arriving to cover his back. He used his maximum strength in the first strike. Golden and brilliant sword auras instantly burst out of the sword and ripped the void apart, cutting the many skills horizontally. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil roared in shock and fury, "Block them!" The sword aura was powerful and sharp. The pressure that the Heavenly King of Good and Evil released was cut apart, it was completely unable to stop it. The nearby Beast King that looked like a sea dragon bellowed and generated a huge billowing vapor cluster out of nowhere, which surged to counter the sword aura. Water was the softest and most flexible of all things. The sword aura soon disappeared in the billowing vapor and failed to pass through. On the other side, Gu Siping roared and unleashed a dazzling spear aura which tore apart the void like lightning, which then appeared in front of all the skills. It immediately stabbed through an ocean of fire and reduced it to a rain of flames. As he looked at the scene raining flames, the other skills that filled his eyes, and the Heavenly King of Good and Evil which was staring at him angrily and aggressively, Suiping stopped walking. He put away his sword and clenched his fist. Dazzling golden light radiated from his fist, making it look like a blossoming lotus. Sacred and vast divine energy burst out. In an instant, it seemed as if gods were chanting. A force field appeared behind Suiping. There were dim shadows of demons inside it and those of gods on the rise. He looked like a god of all gods and a king of kings. Then, a long stifled roar echoed throughout the battlefield. Break! Suiping punched. His fist aura expanded quickly into a shocking size before it encountered the fate state skills in the sky. Boom! 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 The world was in chaos. Violent and turbulent energy was spread out. No sounds could be heard because their frequencies were beyond the human sensory threshold. It wasn't until a dozen seconds later that the sounds were weakened to the point where humans could hear. Deafening explosions echoed, and all the base cities behind the defense lines suffered such a strong hit that an earthquake seemed to have started. The several skills were detonated by the fist of Exorcist in advance. Suiping was pushed back by the blast, but not very far, as his body was as hard as the fist attack and was able to handle the impact. Whoosh! Suiping narrowed his eyes and dashed forth to exit the energy turbulence. Space was trembling and he couldn't move with his usual flash steps. He had to approach the enemy by dashing. Damn it! The Heavenly King of Good and Evil was on the other side of the turbulence, infuriated by the failure of the attacks. It was also left aghast by Suiping's horrifying fist skill. It was ready to initiate another wave of attacks, when it suddenly detected a feeble, yet sharp killing aura. It quickly changed its expression, as Suiping's powerful sword attack had left a deep impression. Field of Darkness. It quickly activated its bloodline skill. The world around was enshrouded in darkness. Those trapped in that field would be deprived of all senses, while their energy would be corrupted and absorbed without realizing it. He's here. Hardly had the field been unfolded when the Heavenly King of Good and Evil detected an intruder. Brutality emanated from its eyes. Suiping was blind inside that field, but it wasn't an impediment. It was very easy to defeat someone who was blind when the other could see. Its white scale-covered head suddenly opened its mouth, where a highly condensed, pure white holy sword was being condensed. It was sharp enough to cut apart a peak fate state wild beast. Whoosh! The light radiated by the holy sword didn't illuminate the dark field. Instead, it simply made the sword brighter. Oddly enough, nothing could be seen in the field of darkness which seemed to be covering everyone's eyeballs with mucus. Not even the brightest light could be seen unless it was right next to the eyes. It was a kind of darkness that couldn't be dispelled by light. The holy light was about to hit the target, when Suaping suddenly leaned down and sprinted. The man instantly dashed forward with an awfully weird movement technique. The heavenly king of good and evil was stunned and wide-eyed. However, in the next moment, it was too afraid to consider why Suaping was able to see things in the field of darkness. It simply remembered his previous attack. "No, I don't want to die." Appalled and enraged, it spouted dragon air essence from both heads. 2 breaths of dragon air, one black and the other white, spurted out. One contained the holy and scorching vibe, and the other was cold and corruptive. However, Suaping drew his sword in the next moment. The horrifying attack that the heavenly king of good and evil couldn't forget was launched again, from close up. Bang! When the sword slashed out, the invisible aura of annihilation tore apart the field of darkness as if it were a black curtain. Then, the sword aura reached the heavenly king of good and evil in the blink of an eye and cut its heads. The one with white scales exploded. Its neck and body underneath the head was cut apart too. No blood spilled from the fractures. Instead, white steam popped up. The blood that was about to gush out under the squeezing of the veins was instantly evaporated. Su Ji Yuanfeng, Gu Siping, and the deputy chief, who had anxiously arrived to help, were all astonished when the field of darkness faded away. The heavenly king of good and evil had been beheaded? Everybody in the base was startled. That wasn't just any beast king. It was the heavenly king of good and evil, the strongest of the 4 infamous kings on the blue planet. Yet, it had been defeated and beheaded by Suaping. Ji Yuanfeng's eyeballs were almost popping out. He couldn't believe that the heavenly king of good and evil, whom he had fought for hundreds of years, died just like that. He had fought the heavenly king of good and evil times, and neither of them could beat each other. So, he trained himself in seclusion and attempted to reach the star state. However, he knew that the heavenly king of good and evil was a talented wild beast that was growing too. Little did he expect that hundreds of years later, it would be executed by Suaping before he had a chance to defeat it. The guy had executed 2 peak fate state wild beasts in a row. Was he really a human being? Nearby, the other fate state beast kings were petrified too. They all knew the horror of the heavenly king of good and evil. Some of the fate state beast kings from the deep caves had conflicts with the 4 kings on the surface after they came from the underground world. However, they were all subdued or killed by the heavenly king of good and evil. The heavenly king of good and evil is dead, the heavenly king of good and evil is dead. The head of 7 sins which loved repeating mumbled in shock and frustration. Another head which always declared that it would blow up the enemy fell silent too and simply opened its mouth. It probably knew the heavenly king of good and evil better than anybody else. After all, the heavenly king of good and evil's ranking was always higher than its, and it was always reluctant to admit its inferiority. But admit it or not, the heavenly king of good and evil was simply stronger. Hey! Suaping was about to deal with the last peak fate state enemy, when he found that the heavenly king of good and evil was still breathing. He turned his head, only to discover that its black-scaled head was pretending to be dead. Noticing Suaping's eyes, the head suddenly opened its mouth and spouted out black flames. At the same time, several rock tentacles grabbed its body and escaped through the underground. It escaped. Suaping's expression changed somewhat. He had cut apart half of the heavenly king of good and evil's body, and it hadn't died. Did 2 heads mean 2 lives? But it had already lost its torso and heart. How could it live without them? Suaping looked ahead where the soil was moving and the heavenly king of good and evil emerged. Next to the heavenly king of good and evil was the peak fate state beast king that looked like a sea dragon. It was shocked, and then angry once it saw that the heavenly king had run to him. Damn it, why did you come to me? Why do you think I can hold them off if you can't beat him? That being said, it couldn't turn a blind eye to an ally. It spouted a mouthful of golden fluid that covered the heavenly king of good and evil's body, before it said, "This is the spring of life that the Ocean Emperor gave me. Remember my favor." "Many thanks," said the heavenly king of good and evil's head with black scales, in a sincere and grateful tone. The sea dragon snorted regretfully, as the spring of life was very precious, it would have possibly been useful to its recovery later. "Just call the Ocean Emperor. We can't beat this guy by ourselves," said the Beast King leader while enjoying the treatment. The sea dragon said angrily, "Why should I know where the Ocean Emperor is? Just heal yourself. I think the human being has lost a lot of his energy, he can't launch powerful attacks endlessly. The Ocean Emperor will probably arrive soon if we persist a while longer." The heavenly king of good and evil was stunned, not expecting that the sea dragon, being a peak fate state beast from the ocean and one of the Ocean Emperor's 3 best generals, would be unable to reach out to the Ocean Emperor. Was there another pair of master and servant like them? No longer counting on reinforcements anymore, the heavenly king of good and evil focused on healing himself. Suaping looked at the golden fluid on the heavenly king and sensed the vibe of plants and divine energy from it. His brow frowned ever so slightly. Was there divine energy on the blue planet? Or was it acquired from certain relics? He had no time to think. He was under a lot of pressure since he failed to kill the enemy in the last attack. He could launch one last attack, plus, it was hard to execute both of enemies. Try to stop the heavenly king from healing. "I'll take care of this one," said Suaping quickly to Ji Yuanfeng and the others. The latter mentioned saw that the heavenly king was treating itself, their expressions changed quickly and nodded. Suaping strode towards the sea dragon. The aquatic beast secretly cried when Suaping moved closer, but it certainly didn't show it on its face. It demanded brutally, "Boy, you'll be dead for sure if you dare to hurt me." Suaping's lips twitched a bit. Was the guy scared even before the battle started? That beast king was slightly weird, and even cute in a way. "It's a shame that I don't have additional beast catching rings, or I would catch you as a pet," remarked Suaping. The sea dragon was instantly outraged. "You want to have me as a pet? Do you really think you can?" Then, it raised a huge tide towards Suaping. Ice daggers with freezing air were darting out from the tide, they were sharp enough to cut through space apart or destroy void state secret treasures. "If you use water, I will counter with lightning." Upon seeing the tide, Suaping simply condensed a lightning arrow in his head and threw it to the tide. Then, it was deviated by the tide and continued towards the sea dragon. The sea beast became numb and angry after being hit by the arrow. It was vulnerable to lightning, and the bolt that Suaping had released was so powerful that it felt as strong as one released by a fate state wild beast of the lightning family. Suaping stepped forward and crushed the tide. He stood on top of the remains of the tide and raised his sword again, determined to finish off the beast king once and for all. The sea dragon shivered when Suaping raised his sword. It had zero confidence in resisting his attack. Right when Suaping was about to launch the void sword, the air temperature suddenly dropped, and snowflakes began to fall out of nowhere. Suaping slightly narrowed his eyes and raised his head. A spatial gap had appeared in the air in front of him, and then a beautiful leg slowly stepped out of it. The leg was long and straight, covered by a thin dress. The dress moved smoothly, following the leg movement as if made of silk, making that luscious limb partly invisible and even more alluring. The owner of the leg was a beautiful woman who had the most attractive face, albeit one devoid of expressions, only nonchalance could be seen on it, as if she didn't have a care in the world. A transparent jellyfish was floating like a cloud right above her head, blocking the wind and dust for her as a parasol. The jellyfish was a wild beast too, it was clearly another fate state creature, even though it was concealing its aura. The Ocean Emperor. She's here. Ji Yuanfeng, Gu Siping, and the others were paralyzed, as if they had suffered an electric shock. They knew that they would meet the Ocean Emperor eventually, but they didn't expect to see her so soon. She also seemed to have grown even stronger than the last time they had met. The Ocean Emperor? Sui Ping became solemn upon hearing Ji Yuanfeng's exclamation. He didn't expect that the emperor who reigned over the seas on the blue planet would be a female. What kind of wild beast was she before? Asked Sui Ping. He fixed his eyes on the empress while he asked, considering her to be extremely dangerous. Even if she wasn't as good as the Star State experts, she was very close. She wasn't any weaker than the top Fate State Celestials he had met in the demigod burial. An opportunity was all she needed to evolve into a Star State wild beast. After hearing what Sui Ping said, Ji Yuanfeng and the others slightly changed their expressions. They were relieved to see that the Ocean Emperor didn't burst into fury. Ji Yuanfeng simply replied telepathically, "Her original body seems to be a sea unicorn. That was what the first generation Tower Master told me. I don't know if it's true, though." While sending a telepathic message, Ji Yuanfeng said to the Ocean Emperor, "Your Majesty, have you forgotten the pact you made with the first generation Tower Master?" The Empress of the Seas looked at Ji Yuanfeng indifferently and then replied without the slightest emotion, "The pact is no longer effective now that he's dead." Ji Yuanfeng's expression changed. Standing next to him, Gu Siping gritted his teeth and said, "Who says my master is dead? He's still alive." Both Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were stunned. They looked at him in surprise. The man was still alive? No way. If he were alive, why on earth hadn't he shown up yet? The first generation Tower Master had been heavily wounded in the deep caves and eventually retired. He should have recuperated after so many years, but no one ever saw him again. So, nobody knew if he was still alive. He could be, but he was never seen. He could be dead, but his body was never found, and Gu Siping never prepared a funeral for his master. If he's alive, why is he still hiding? And even if he is, so what? "Do you think I'm eternally bound by a pact?" said the Empress indifferently without any respect for Gu Siping and the others. Shocked and infuriated, Gu Siping said, "Your Majesty, you're going back on your word. Honoring promises is what matters most to human beings. You rule over billions of wild beasts. If you went back on your word so easily, wouldn't your subordinates mock you? Besides, my master is still alive. The pact still stands. Honoring your promise." The Empress wasn't going to speak to Gu Siping any longer, but after hearing what he said, she put on a smile of derision and said, "It's only you, hypocritical humans, who are always bound by promises. We honor nothing but strength. If you're strong, you're kings, if you're weak, you're food. Promises are just bulls it. Tell your master to keep on hiding if he's still alive, because I'll kill him if I see him again." Gu Siping and Ji Yuanfeng looked quite awful. It was evident that the Ocean Emperor was determined to ignore the pact and start an invasion. Ji Yuanfeng gritted his teeth and said, "Your Majesty, we've coexisted for years, us on land while you rule over the seas. I can see that you're not truly coveting our territories, but if you do need them, we can give away the other continents if you spare one for us." Shocked, Gu Siping snapped, "That's our territory. How can we give it away so easily?" Slightly stunned, Ji Yuanfeng glared at him and roared at him telepathically, "We're about to go extinct. What's the point of clinging to the territory?" Gu Siping was gloomy after such criticism, but he also realized the situation and knew that they had to appease her. "Your Majesty, there must be a reason for your long march. Whatever you need, just tell us. We'll give it to you if we can. I'm sure you don't want to break the pact either. The Beastmaster in the deep caves must have promised you something great, but we can also give you things," cried Gu Siping to the Ocean Emperor. Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were nervously looking at her, waiting for her reply. Far in the distance, Yan Yuxiu and the others were also anxious. It would be for the best if a truce could be reached, but they somehow felt that the chances were slim. After all, the invaders had gone to great lengths to get there. Why would they retreat that easily? Besides, they could still get whatever they wanted after killing all humans. Sui Ping frowned at the Empress. Although he felt that Gu Siping and Ji Yuanfeng's pleas were pointless, it was still worth a shot. Theirs was a desperate situation where they didn't know what else they could do. You're willing to give me anything? Why don't you give me your heads for a start? Coldness and boredom flashed in the Empress' eyes. Ice rose instantly on the ground, stabbing at Gu Siping and Ji Yuanfeng. At the same time, Ice was also stabbing them from unpredictable perspectives around them. Both of them were appalled. Ice from the void? How advanced was her understanding of space? Sui Ping knew that things weren't going well when he saw the boredom in the Empress' eyes. He gasped when Gu Siping and Ji Yuanfeng managed to block the attacks. It seemed that he had to give his last strike to the Empress. However, he wasn't confident of executing her this time. He saw the Empress as brutal and terrifying. She wasn't like the other people at the Fate State. Are you going to use your sword technique again? When Sui Ping was going to attack, the Empress turned to him. In fact, her attention had been focused on him all the time while she talked to other people. Sui Ping narrowed his eyes and asked, "When did you arrive? Your sword technique contains the power of laws. I can't tell your level, but you can't be in the star state. I can spare your life if you teach me the laws you've comprehended," said the Empress indifferently, not deigning to answer Sui Ping's question. Sui Ping's pupils contracted. She can see the laws of annihilation in my sword technique? With a pounding heart, he said gloomily, "You need me to teach you laws? Haven't you perceived laws on your own?" "I have, but you can't have too many laws," said the Empress in a casual tone. "If your laws serve as any inspiration, I may be able to establish a complete set of laws and transcend, so that I may step into the star state. Your life will mean nothing to me by then, and I can spare you." Sui Ping instantly realized her plan. It seemed that just like him, she had only perceived some basic laws and hadn't fully grasped them yet. Once she had a fuller grasp of them all, she would have a system of laws, and she could transcend with the laws and break through to the star state. "First, you have to set everyone free if you want me to teach them to you," said Sui Ping coldly. Although the Empress didn't seem trustworthy, he had to see if he could make a deal with her. After all, she was in control of some laws, and she was at the peak of the Fate State. His odds of winning against her weren't high. Besides, he only had enough energy to launch one attack, which was unlikely to kill her. To Sui Ping's surprise, the Empress quickly declined. "That's impossible. To be honest, you're dead for sure. That Lord loathes human beings. The best I can do is to ensure your safety, if you're obedient," said the Empress with a cold tone. Sui Ping was surprised. That Lord? He had goosebumps all over his body. The Lord which an overly powerful Empress was referring to could only be a star state expert, right? Also, he loathed human beings. Had a star state demon king emerged in the corridor during the past 1,000 years? Sui Ping lost his determination upon considering such a scenario. The star state. That was a level completely beyond his abilities. He had defeated star state wild beasts in the cultivation sites, but only by fighting a war of attrition with countless resurrections. Once those beasts chose to leave, he was completely unable to stop them. Their level gap was too wide. If the beast tides from the deep caves were backed by a star state creature, then, there was nothing Sui Ping could do except to say, "GG. Now that you've realized it, my advice is that you act obediently." The Empress noticed the wavering faith in Sui Ping's eyes, which caused a flaw in his posture, but she didn't use that chance to attack him. She could have wounded him heavily if she had ambushed him. But she was too proud to do that. Indeed, she had broken the pact, but only she knew why she did that. Sui Ping came back to his senses when the Empress talked again. He realized the weakness he had just exposed. He slightly changed his expression, relieved to see that she didn't do anything. In the meantime, he treated the Empress more solemnly. He didn't believe that the Empress was bluffing. Besides, so many fate-state wild beasts from the deep caves had been domesticated. It couldn't have been done by the Empress alone. The real Star-State Demon King surely had a hand in this. Do I have to retreat to my store? Sui Ping's lips twitched. He was truly reluctant to do that. He had been fighting that hard because he wanted everybody behind the defense lines to survive. His store was indeed a safe place, but it was too small. It wasn't enough to accommodate everybody behind the defense lines. The Empress furrowed her brows and said impatiently, "Do you even need to consider this? Aren't you afraid of death?" Sui Ping took a deep breath and looked at her. "I think I'll pass, since you're not in charge. I don't need you to ensure my safety." The Empress was stunned for a moment and then turned cold. "Do you really want to be killed? You can try." Sui Ping raised his sword and sneered. "Do you really think I'm interested in your superficial laws? I'll complete my own laws in another 100. No, 10 years. A horrifying surge of coldness was spread out of the Empress. Since she had reigned the seas for 1,000 years, she was too proud to ask Sui Ping for the information again. Now that you've refused my first request, don't ever consider having a chance again. Kill him." Coldness was spread out, and then a pointy ice spear suddenly appeared in the Empress' hand. It looked like a long dragon and was quite intimidating. She charged at Sui Ping with the spear. Dozens of her clones were manifested at the same time. Sui Ping was dazed for a moment, as he couldn't tell which of them was real. The enemy was also moving too fast for him to identify them. Boom! Sui Ping roared and punched. If he couldn't recognize her, might as well smash all of them. After a boom, the brilliant fist of Exorcist was on its way, but then it was frozen after moving a few meters in front of Sui Ping. It was quite similar to the scene where Ji Yuanfeng's tornadoes were frozen. However, Sui Ping's fist of Exorcist contained divine energy, which had a penetrative nature which could hardly be bound. Nevertheless, it was frozen at the moment. Sui Ping was stunned for a moment, before he came to an appalling understanding. It wasn't a space blockage, it was real freezing. His fist aura had solidified. It was the Empress ability, or rather, a law she managed to control. After a booming noise, the giant fist aura exploded, and its constituent energy was torn apart. An ice spear descended from the sky and pierced Sui Ping. Sui Ping's expression changed greatly. He raised his sword, ready to perform the Void Sword. That technique was the only one that could help him escape. However, a flame rose in the air the moment he raised his hand. It was so scorching that even Sui Ping, who had special grade resistance to fire, felt hot. The Empress changed her expression and quickly retreated. The cold air around her formed a piece of exquisite armor, which made her body look even more graceful. She looked at the fire in front of Sui Ping with an awful expression. The fire was gone. The next moment, someone walked out of the area where the fire had vanished. He was a young man with long, red hair. His body's upper half, naked and athletic, was made of lean and strong muscles that weren't too bulging. He was about 1.9 meters tall, and he chuckled while Sui Ping stood behind his back. "I've just exited my seclusion, and I've already seen such a wonderful battle. Not bad, not bad." On his opposite side, the Empress wore an expression of disbelief and cried, "You're still alive?" Down below, Gu Siping exclaimed in delight, "Sir!" He didn't look like a shrewd, sophisticated old man at the moment, he was acting more like a happy child. Of course, it remained unknown whether or not he was pretending. Next to him, both Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief widened their eyes with disbelief. "It's the first-generation Tower Master. He's still alive. He really is alive. Also, his vibe." Ji Yuanfeng's body was trembling. He was no less excited than Gu Siping, as he could tell that the first-generation Tower Master had crossed the barrier and transcended. The man had become a star-state expert. Ji Yuanfeng was almost unable to stop himself from roaring. "Ah! What a frustrating battle! There was almost no hope for them when the Empress took action, but all the problems were gone now. Would there really be a need to be scared of the beast tides with a star-state first-generation Tower Master fighting on their side? They would have been easily suppressed. Far away in the distance, Yuan Tianchen, Yan Yuxiu and the other legendary warriors were also shocked to see the man with fiery long hair. They were almost unable to recognize him. Although his body figure and his voice were just like before, his hair had turned red, and he became unbelievably strong. Back in the base city, someone asked in shock and suspicion, "Who's that guy? Why is his hair red? Is he a demon? Is he a wild beast, like the Empress who turned into a human?" Nonsense! Didn't you see how he saved Mr. Su? He must be on our side. The man looks strong. Can we win? Everybody was at a loss. The battle was too exciting, there were quite a few twists and turns. Also, they couldn't understand the fights of such high levels at all. As a result, they didn't know whether they should cheer, or wait a while longer. He sounded casual and even flirtatious. Su Ping, who was right behind him, had already identified the young man from Gu Siping's earlier exclamation. He was the first-generation Tower Master. The unquestionable strongest man on the blue planet. He founded the tower and organized the legendary warriors. He subdued the wild beasts in the deep caves and defeated the Ocean Emperor 1,000 years earlier, forcing her to sign a peace pact. The pact had protected the 5 continents for 1,000 years. The young man was definitely a true legend. Furthermore, the legendary level was in fact named after him. He truly deserved to be called a living legend because of his feats. Su Ping also felt awe as he recalled the first Tower Master's achievements. However, why didn't you come sooner if you were still alive? Is it true that the hero who arrives last will be doubly handsome? That's useless. You're not as handsome as me, even if you were doubly handsome. Besides, this woman in front of you was originally a wild beast. Why are you flirting with her? Su Ping became absent-minded and thought of a lot of indescribable things. But he quickly focused his attention on the battle at hand. In any case, he could finally catch his breath with the first Tower Master saving the day. He was truly reassured. After all, that ancient hero was undoubtedly releasing a star-state aura. He was one level higher than the Empress, and could easily crush her no matter how proud she was. Therefore, Su Ping thought that his battle was already over and he could take a break. But he remembered that Lord the Empress mentioned. Obviously, the Empress was only carrying out a task, and she seemed to have been forced to help with the battle. The real challenge was the Star-State Demon King born in the deep caves. The Demon King loathed humans to an extreme, even going as far as asking the Empress to mobilize the beasts in the oceans to surround and destroy humankind. It wasn't hard to imagine how much he hated them. A battle against him was inevitable. However, the question about who was stronger between that mysterious lord and the first-generation Tower Master remained to be seen. Su Ping blinked once. He couldn't make an assessment, as those two had never fought before. However, it would be too late once they got to fight and a result was revealed. It was certainly impossible to increase the odds of success by resorting to silly prayers, otherwise misfortune would have never existed. It's a shame that I can't adopt Star-State battle pets yet, or I could have posed some resistance, Su Ping thought. Even though his store had just been upgraded, he was desperate to upgrade it again. It was true that the source of anxiety was always desire. Nothing would happen as long as you kept an open mind. Su Ping was truly relaxed at the moment, to the point that he was even having random thoughts. He had been just as pressured as Ji Yuanfeng and the others in the earlier battle. He had already shown enough self-control by not crying out excitedly at the moment. While Su Ping was having all kinds of random thoughts, the Empress looked at the first-generation Tower Master with a complicated expression. She also realized that her old opponent had reached the star state faster than she had. She bit her lips, knowing she was no longer a match for him. "You seem to have broken your pact," said the first tower master with a casual smile. However, the Empress wore a grave expression while a cold temperature surged around her, as if she was preparing her defense. Yes, I have. She coldly stared at the first tower master. I had abided by the pact for 1,000 years without breaking it once. You should be satisfied. The first generation tower master raised his eyebrows and said, You seem to be right. Before the Empress could heave a sigh of relief, the tower master then changed his attitude. However, I remember that the pact was supposed to be effective for all eternity, which means until the demise of humanity. You promised eternity to me, yet you only honored it for 1,000 years. I'm not happy about that. The nearby Gu Siping, Ji Yuan Feng and the others looked weird. Why is he sounding more and more flirtatious? Was there truly a relationship between the tower master and the Empress? But she's a beast. Sui Ping narrowed his eyes upon sensing the tower master's killing intent and focused on the battle. His strength was also recovered in a short period. What do you want? To kill me? The Empress looked at the tower master coldly. So be it. The tower master chuckled and vanished, then, he reappeared in front of the Empress the very next moment. That was done, in a flash. However, unlike the void state flash, he didn't do so by tearing space apart. Rather, it seemed that he had been standing in front of the Empress the whole time. Was it some sort of law? His instantaneous reappearance made the Empress' pupils contract, but she had prepared her defense. The tower master was frozen in ice the moment he showed up. However, hardly had the ice covered his body when it was burnt and thawed by flames. Then, the tower master reached for her throat. Bang! The Empress's neck was crushed. But then, her broken neck splashed apart as ice blades, while her body followed suit and exploded. The tower master unleashed flames that melted all the ice blades. Then, he narrowed his eyes and looked several kilometers away. Your old trick. It still works, doesn't it? There, the Empress stepped out of the void and breathed heavily. She had only escaped by a narrow margin. There was still a fist-shaped burn mark on her throat, which was quite eye-catching. Hey, interesting. The tower master chuckled and dashed out, covered in flames. He looked like a god of fire in the middle of furious flames. The Empress' pupils contracted. She raised hundreds of concentric ice walls. Meantime, her hair grew and moved like algae, emitting a horrifying vibe. Bang! 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 The ice walls were broken through, and the tower master reached the Empress in the blink of an eye. However, his expression changed when he was about to launch an attack. He dodged to the side and in the next moment, a sharp claw swept past him. He might have been hit by the sharp claw had he not dodged in time. The tower master dashed to another side and narrowed his eyes with a solemn expression. The Empress was relieved to see the claw, knowing that her part in the battle was over. She couldn't help when it came to a battle between star-state beings. However, she could observe them and see how they made use of laws. Maybe she would find inspiration. Thinking about that, she said to the horrifying shadow that just walked out. I'll take my leave now that you're here. Okay, replied a bloodthirsty and brutal voice. The voice conveyed the ferocity of the beast that had just stepped out of the void. It was a monster about 5 meters tall, with 2 rows of bloody wings flapping on its back. There were pointy brown stings on elbows and shoulders. It had a human-like face, albeit much more horrifying than that of most human counterparts. A curse-winged beast. While watching from a distance, Sui Ping was slightly startled by the wild beast that had just stepped out. He recognized it. He had seen it in the chaotic realm of the undead. It was a demon-class beast which had a star-state bloodline. It was one of the talented wild beasts. He had once seen a fiend of horror in an enormous bone temple. At that time, that ghastly beast had a bunch of curse-winged beasts as helpers. He had also run into separate curse-winged beasts during his training outings. They killed him simply by looking at him. Such wild beasts had left a deep impression on him. After all, not many wild beasts were as handsome as them, whose faces almost looked akin to humans. The Star State. The first-generation Tower Master looked at the curse-winged beast, his smile gone. He remarked thoughtfully, "I didn't expect you to develop in the deep caves. Are you their current lord? Where's the old one? Is it dead?" Nai Huofeng. The curse-winged beast suddenly spoke in human language, wearing an angry expression. "Why? Don't you recognize me anymore? Ha ha ha, that's understandable. Thanks to you, I was able to activate the hidden ancient demon blood in my body after enduring extreme agony and seething with anger. I didn't expect for you to also reach this level after so many years. How interesting." Nai Huofeng was quite shocked. "You were the hideous demon swallower. Stop calling me by the crappy name that you damned lowly creatures gave me. I have inherited extraordinary willpower from my ancient demon blood. I am much nobler than that worthless name. Now, my name is the Lord of Demons. Remember that." The curse-winged beast roared angrily, apparently dissatisfied with Nai Huofeng calling him by his old name. Sui Ping was rather stunned by the curse-winged beast's roar, but he could sympathize with it. After all, everybody wanted to look pretty. "However, you're truly ugly. Also, you're truly bold, daring to bear the Lord of Demons' name. Your parents would have probably never allowed you to walk out of your home if you ever lived in the chaotic realm of the undead. All due to fearing that someone or something would beat you to death." Nai Huofeng was stunned for a moment, then nodded after hearing what the curse-winged beast had to say. "It truly was you. I didn't expect you to still be alive." "That's all thanks to you," the curse-winged beast declared angrily. "Do you know how I survived the past 1,000 years? The deep caves are quite cramped, and you let us brutalize each other while we're inside. You thought we would have fought each other until none remained standing. But you didn't see it coming, that I would make a breakthrough or awaken the ancient blood in my body, did you?" As it talked, it couldn't help but laugh aloud, except that its laughter was twisted and filled with fury and hatred. It had almost gone insane because of 1,000 years of confinement and killing. If it hadn't successfully evolved and dominated the deep caves with absolute strength, the beasts might have really mauled each other until they all died off as Nai Huofeng hoped. Even though it was the strongest at first, other wild beasts still kept challenging its authority and competing for resources. It had to fight and conquer every single day. Every lord was exhausted and killed even if they were made of iron. Then, their successors were challenged incessantly, until they were exhausted to death. And so on. However, that curse-winged beast didn't collapse after all it went through. Nai Huofeng stared at it calmly and said after it was done laughing, "Do you really think I didn't know anything that happened in the deep caves?" "Hey!" The curse-winged beast, stunned, became grave and asked, "What do you mean? Are you interested in working as my battle pet?" asked Nai Huofeng. "Have you lost your mind?" The curse-winged beast burst into a fit of fury, feeling quite insulted. "I already knew the trouble you caused in the deep caves, but I didn't know it was you. I thought it was just a new beast that arose from the competitions. It's even better since you're an old pal, we're more familiar with each other." Nai Huofeng said calmly, "Although I'm in the Star State, I have yet to find a Star State battle pet to match. You are a perfect choice. I can probably advance to a higher level with your help, after I absorb the astral power that has been gathered for 1,000 years." The curse-winged beast snapped, "You must be crazy to even think of taming me. Your long-accumulated astral power is mine. Once I eat you, refine your soul and absorb your laws, I'll claim the position of Star Lord with 1,000-year astral power. Then, all the other beasts will deify me, becoming my believers." "You're overthinking." Nai Huofeng smiled casually. "Cut the crap and die." The curse-winged beast burst into a momentary spike of fury and extended its sharp claws, which were almost as long as its body. Space in the first layer had been torn apart, and they entered the second layer of space. That was a deeper territory. It was said that one could break the wall between universes and travel to another world in a deeper space. However, they could only reach the second layer of space, given their current combat ability. The chaotic energy in the third layer of space could also significantly damage them if the second layer of space was ever torn apart, so they only dared to tear apart the first layer and fight in the second layer. Nai Huofeng took action, too. His body was covered in flames, which contained laws, thus setting the second layer of space ablaze. The curse-winged beast released an intimidating demonic aura, truly looking like a king of fiends. It was horrifying to see. The space where they were fighting was completely dirty. The blue sky and the beast tides could be seen outside of the torn space. However, anything out of range in their battlefield seemed to have a background made of cloth. They had torn apart the cloth at the edge and were fighting in the central area. Sui Ping intended to warn the Tower Master of the curse-winged beast's wings. He had seen them fighting other wild creatures in the chaotic realm of the undead. Their wings could unleash powerful spell attacks, which was why they were named curse-winged beasts. After all, no names could be wrong, it was just like how it had been called Hideous Demon Swallower earlier. However, according to the pet encyclopedia he got from the system, Sui Ping knew that its real name before evolving should be Paradise Glutton. It was a unique species on the blue planet. Therefore, the first-generation Tower Master didn't know that it was actually a star-state wild beast. At that moment, the Tower Master was fighting in the second layer of space that Sui Ping's voice couldn't reach, so he had to give up. From his recent actions, Sui Ping was able to tell that the guy wasn't as great and selfless as he thought. It didn't make sense that he would let the beasts break the seal and swarm out when he already knew what was going on in the deep caves. He could have gone to the deep caves and tamed a pet. If all he wanted was to pick a good battle pet for himself through competitions. Wait, if he's been to the deep caves, there wouldn't have been a great battle, which would have destroyed the seal all the same. Sui Ping was instantly staggered. Could it be that the first-generation Tower Master suppressed the wild beasts in the deep caves exactly for that purpose? To raise a tough battle pet for himself? Sui Ping knew how alluring a powerful battle pet could be to a battle pet warrior. The battle pet development technology was rather underdeveloped on the blue planet, very few people could raise 9th-rank beasts. It was already commendable that they were able to raise Ocean State Beast Kings, which required a Holy Spirit trainer such as the president of the Trainers Association. However, there weren't many Holy Spirit trainers worldwide. It was practically impossible to raise pets of the Void State, they could only be found and captured in the wild. The Fate State battle pets could hardly be seen even in the wild. Sui Ping blinked. If the first Tower Master had planned to groom a brutal Fate State beast if not at the Star State 1,000 years earlier, then the guy was truly thoughtful. At this moment, Gu Siping's voice was heard. Let's take care of the beast tides while my master executes that thing. Gu Siping couldn't have looked more confident and delighted, he seemed to be in control of everything again. He then looked at Sui Ping and said, "Do you still have strength? Those Fate State beasts are yours. Don't let them run away." He simply commanded Sui Ping. Sui Ping narrowed his eyes. Was the guy confident because his master was there? However, Sui Ping wasn't scared. First of all, he was protected by the system store, not even the first-generation Tower Master could hurt him. Secondly, it remained to be seen if Nai Huofeng could defeat the Demon King from the deep caves. After all, the curse-winged beast was an extremely ferocious beast even while having a star-state cultivation. Nai Huofeng would have a hard time defeating the enemy with his own abilities, if he didn't have pets of the star state, that is, unless he had as much battle experience as Sui Ping did. But Sui Ping didn't think he did. Sui Ping wasn't being arrogant. The guy might have lived 1,000 years, but so what? How many Fate State wild beasts were out there on the blue planet working as his sparring partners? In any case, Sui Ping hoped that the Tower Master was able to win. After all, the Lord of the Deep Caves would be unstoppable if he lost, the defense lines would collapse. That was the last thing that Suaping wanted to see. As for Gu Siping, who was trying to boss him around, Suaping decided not to give in, at all. The guy wasn't qualified to give him orders. Aren't you also a Fate State warrior? You are the 3rd generation Tower Master anyway. I already said that I would take care of the 3 peak Fate State beasts. You can take care of the rest. You think you can just stand there like a mascot? Snapped Suaping. Gu Siping was quite stunned by Suaping's response, becoming furious when he realized what he was implying. He almost wanted to tear his mouth into pieces. You. What? Are you stuttering? Gu Siping blushed, and his eyes almost shot flames. Having been a solemn leader for years, he found it impossible to beat Suaping when it came to mockery. The nearby Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were also stunned. They were rendered speechless when they saw that Gu Siping was trembling with fury. It was completely unexpected for them to see the commander of all the legendary warriors on the planet to be that angry. However, they had to admit that Suaping was quite resourceful. Brother Gu, Brother Su must be tired from all the consecutive battles. Let's take care of the other Fate State wild beasts together, said Ji Yuanfeng in a placating tone. Asking Suaping to take care of the other Fate State wild beasts was really an embarrassment for him.